Good stuff.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call to order the City Council adjourned regular meeting, the Project Pulse study session of Tuesday, August 26, 2025, and we'll begin with a pledge to the flag. All rise, please. Hand on your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Tarnay is absent. Councilmember Sherillian.
Here.
Councilmember Howard.
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem Franklin.
Here.
Mayor Lesser.
Here. Is there an approval of the agenda? Motion by Councilwoman Howard with a second by Councilmember Sherillian. Proceed to a vote, please. Thank you.
Motion passes 4-0-1.
Thank you. Before we move on to public comments, I just want to welcome everybody on behalf of the city for this Project Pulse study session about the two properties that are subject to tonight's meeting. We can proceed now to public comment, and there will also be an opportunity for public comment once we get beyond the presentation and council member questions. Would anyone care to address council for up to 3 minutes on any matter that's in the subject matter jurisdiction of the city, including the items on the agenda this evening? Seeing, yeah, please feel free to come on down.
Do I need to pass this in?
Please, thank you.
Hi, my name is Dan Higgins. I live at 1144 North Ardmore Avenue, across Ardmore Avenue from downtown. And in regards to the project here behind Hennessy's, where the old parking garage was, I thought it would be a really neat idea to create a social club. I envisioned something like a Soho club, maybe with a rooftop pool, some meeting rooms, catering. It'd be a nice place for families to gather, for people to meet, people to do business, and bring some of that downtown, some of those business meetings that you can have in high-end restaurants and things like that. But a social club brings it to a new level, and I think it would fit with the demographics of Manhattan Beach. I think if you go to the Soho Club, for example, in Malibu or some of the other cities like Miami, they create a really nice atmosphere. They create a really nice gathering point for people to get together at. And the beauty of it is it could be done on the top floor, for example. You could still have retail and other type of operations on the bottom floor or something like that, and parking underneath or whatever else is appropriate for the space. But just wanted to bring up the idea of a social club and that concept of it, and put that out there for you, the City Council, and all of the people in the audience too. That's it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else in chambers have any public comment? If not, Martha, is anybody on Zoom that cares to make a comment at this time?
There's no request on Zoom.
In which case, we'll close.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
before you close, I want to be sure, I know there's some folks who haven't been here before, and I saw other people fill out yellow slips beforehand. So I just...
Okay,
so
before I
wanna
close
be
public
sure.
comment, thank you.
Because this is our time to hear from folks. So if you filled out a yellow form or you want to speak, this is the time.
Please. Hi.
Okay. You ready?
Yes, please.
Good evening, council members and fellow residents. My name is Maria Virgilio, and I've been a resident of Manhattan Beach for the past 40 years. I have decades of experience working in the entertainment industry, and most recently, I have a consulting business helping brands and businesses succeed. As a visionary and someone who can spot trends, I understand audiences and have proven techniques and strategies generating proven results. I'm here to propose that the lot at 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard become an open-air marketplace with high-end retailers, or keep the existing building and create a mercantile. Businesses similar to Right Tribe, known for their beautiful leather works, or Dasha, known for their exquisite home furnishings. The marketplace would be free to Manhattan Beach residents and $1 for visitors, with a coupon incentive to encourage shopping at nearby brick and mortar stores. At the heart of the marketplace, I propose a welcoming information and hospitality booth to guide visitors and offer a first-class experience. Recently, a production crew visited town and needed guidance as to parking, logistics, and other basics. Having a check-in suite would ensure every visitor from cruise to tourist have a seamless, memorable experience. And also, given that so many athletes and celebrities live here, and with my business partner's husband being a former Dodger, we could also include autograph sessions, memorabilia, and curated experience that offer the wow factor visitors seek. This marketplace isn't just about commerce, it's about community, experience, and legacy. I'm offering my expertise and connections to help launch this vision, and truly believe that this time in society is a setback for a setup for a comeback after everything our cities have been through. Your consideration is appreciated.
Thank you very much. Ask again, would anybody care to come down now at this time?
Because there's
Please.
no other time.
Once we open the item.
I just knew.
Council, my name is Rob Christensen. I've been a resident of Manhattan Beach for 50 years. I've watched our city evolve from over that period from a small, sleepy beach town to one of the most vibrant communities in the state of California. But for our city to continue to prosper, it needs to take advantage of every opportunity to increase tax revenue, in my view. And we should be looking at the options for parking lot 3, the Morningside, through that lens. The costs of running the city, as you all know, keep going up every year, particularly pension costs, labor costs, material costs, the cost of upgrading our infrastructure, and our public safety always seems to need more money. So when considering proposals for parking lot 3, we should be looking at uses that will enhance our community as well as maximize revenue to the city at the same time. And clearly, to me, that proposal would be to build a hotel with parking underneath. This would help solve the parking shortage and benefit city coffers at the same time. Hotels are one of the highest revenue generators of any business in the city, with the 14% occupancy tax. Also to consider is that building a hotel will be a catalyst, I believe, for creating other businesses in the city. And if you look back at the history of Metlock's Plaza and when it was built, every business in the city prospered over time from that development. So in any event, I'd ask the council to consider a hotel with parking underneath as the option for parking lot 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Please. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Lesser and Council. I'm Marie Colmy from the Cultural Arts Commission. And I just wanted to say I strongly encourage Council to incorporate a public arts component for both lots at the earliest stage possible, because I think it's a great opportunity. But to keep that in mind and put that into place as early as possible, not waiting to the end, but soon in the design process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, City Council. I'm Susan Walker. It's been a while since I've been here, by the way, and so yes, I didn't know what the procedure process is, but I'll go ahead and speak. This is regarding the plans for the 12th Street parking. I've lived here my husband and I lived here for about 50 years, and of course during that time we've seen a lot of changes. The Metlock's transition, when Michael Zislis and his A-team put together a plan of building a boutique hotel, plus having a little courtyard and other shops and restaurants and so forth. At the time, a larger hotel conglomerate was supposed to go in, and it turned out the city of Manhattan Beach voted that hotel down. Then they found out that, hey, they couldn't make money on the project, so then Michael stepped up to the plate, Michael Zislis, and of course, hence Shade Hotel. Now, regarding the parking, yes, we know we need parking. However, if we could achieve a same goal by having the parking sub-level and then have at street level, of course, a courtyard, some shops, a couple of stories high, maybe even an extension of the Shade Hotel, it'd be a great idea. You go over to the Metlock Center, all you see are a lot of happy families there having a great time. And I think that's what we need to extend for our beautiful beach town. And Mike Zislis, he has proven himself as being a person for an in-depth project such as this. And to me, if you reach the same goal by having the parking and then having different shops and so forth, then I would have to say it's a win-win. I appreciate you hearing me, and it's a great place to live as well as to grow old here. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Any other members of the public that would care to come down and speak at this time? Please.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Jessica Holzman. This is my first time here at City Hall. Thank you so much for having us all. I am a newer resident. I've only been here for about 4 years. I have 3 children, 7 and under, 2 of which attend Robinson Elementary, and we live on 10th Street right behind the 400 property that's a topic of discussion today. I don't have a specific suggestion for a building or a hotel. My plea is that you keep in mind that not only is this a place where we come for vibrancy and culture and entertainment, it's also people's homes and neighborhoods where we go to get groceries, where we walk our small children to school. So just in terms of consideration of design, appropriateness, what we're fostering and attracting, just to remember that part of what makes this town so wonderful is that it's so family friendly and safe, and I'm so lucky to be a part of this community, and it's just, just want to take a moment to ask for that consideration.
Thank you. Thank you for coming down.
So cool to have a lot of first-timers.
Yes.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, Jessica. Hi, Robinson family. Hi, my name is Allie. I've lived in Manhattan Beach. I've been the fortunate one to be here for 3 years now. I heavily invested in this in our community. I run fundraising for Robinson and also with MBEF. I'm heavily involved. So creating value for our city is like I jumped right in, head first, feet first. I'm here together with Brent. We saw the 400 building and we thought, hey, Project Pulse is amazing. I'm so excited we're doing that. And we would like to know if you consider an interim solution of creating more value for the building while Project Pulse is running. There is so much we can do pop-up wise. I'm sure there's a lot of people, local people who would love to get in the building and showcase what they can do. So if the city would consider that, I would be very excited about that. And I'll introduce Brent.
And my name is Brent Esserbrook. I'm a new resident here. My wife and I, we live at 217 19th Street. And one of the reasons I say the exact address is if you come down 19th Street, there's a good chance you'll see me out on our patio painting. I've been a career artist since 2014. I graduated dental school in 2014, decided to follow my passion in life, which was art.
Amazing artist, by the way. He sells multiple figures, Christie's, just a tribute to the city that he's actually come from downtown LA.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be
come
out
here in
here.
Manhattan Beach.
Paradise out here. But I would love to really bring my art into this city because this will be my wife and I's home for forever. My specialty, I make positive, very family-friendly art. I tell people anywhere from a 1-year-old to a 110-year-old will like my art. And if you're interested, come up to me afterwards, and I'll give you a little preview. But ultimately, in the interim, is turn that space into a little art museum. I would create a studio out there and really start to build that art culture out here in Manhattan Beach.
Yeah, and the idea came, Brent and I were having coffee at Verve, which is our favorite little place, and it's right across the street from it, and we were daydreaming how we could bring so much more imagination and creativity to the city, but it didn't have to be a permanent structure. It didn't have to be a permanent setup. And hence we looked at it and we're like, this could be wonderful, and I'm sure there's many others as Brent that would love the opportunity to showcase in that amazing building.
Yeah, it's very easy to retrofit any space into a really cool art experience. It just takes putting a few easels, hanging a few lights, and you're off to the races.
So
Yeah.
thank you,
Great,
everyone.
thank you. Thank you for coming down.
Hi, my name is Rachel Hang Rothman. I'm a resident of Redondo Beach, but I attend school at Miracosta, so I've spent a lot of time in the Manhattan Beach community. I'm here to propose that we use the parking lot space for a teen center. Redondo Beach currently has a teen center. They opened it before COVID and unfortunately had to shut it down during COVID, but they plan to start it up again. And before it was shut down, they realized that it was a great way to foster youth empowerment and allow youth to build a sense of community, especially in such a digital age where youth aren't as connected as we were before. I think with a teen center in Manhattan Beach, we could foster our youth and develop our youth. We could help each other. As a senior in high school, I'm going through the college process, and I'm able to help so many people from being able to talk to them and stuff, but having a center where teens can go and ask for help and, not be scared to ask for help and not be scared to explore who they are and explore their interests would be a great way to not only involve youth and connect them, but also involve our community, because I'm sure a lot of you guys have a lot of different interests, especially just being here listening to everyone. It could be an art museum on the weekends. I personally run a fashion program at Richstone that I would, love to introduce there. A lot of other teens have. I know someone who has a gardening club that they would love to introduce. It'd be a great way just to develop our minds and expand our horizons. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for coming down. Is there anybody else in the chamber? Please come on down. Good afternoon.
Mayor and City Council, my name is Fred Taylor. I'm a 49-year resident of Manhattan Beach. I know that's hard to believe if you look at my youthful face. But I was just sitting here, I hadn't intended to make comments, but I'd like to have us consider a hybrid approach. In other words, we have an incredible asset. Homes on the Strand are going for big dollars, and here we have a piece of real estate just a few blocks from the beach. So I would like to suggest that we have a parking solution, we have a public use solution, and a commercial solution. And it's something where we could build a building that would have public use facilities, and then the upper floors could be commercial, maybe a boutique hotel or something like that, underground parking. Because we have an opportunity here to have a lot of revenue going forward for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello, thank you for having this forum. Heather DeRose, resident of 25th Street. And I don't know if this idea has come up yet, I was a little late. But I've seen it effective in other communities, having a information booth and more cleaner public restrooms. We have a lot of visitors and neighbors as well, I think, that could take advantage of that. We have the really small maps around, but I think if we had someone in the information booth, really, showing how friendly our community was to everyone and where to eat dinner and all those good things. I think it could be really effective, as well as a few parking spaces as well. I know that's at a premium right now, but I think we could benefit, again, from restrooms and some kind of information booth or facility like that for our community. So, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Please. Hello.
Hi, my name is Jennifer O'Mara. My family has been here for 40 years and 70 years. And also, I don't know if anybody else was here for the housing element discussion. It was 3.5 hours, and they cut it off before people were done. Part of this is that Manhattan Beach made a deal, or a housing plan, that put Wilshire level 7-story high-rise zoning to meet the state requirement along Sepulveda and a few other major areas. Part of this is to accommodate low-income and special needs and very low-income people, but also they made a deal where they blew out all those zoning requirements. They're putting a huge burden on the people that are right off, or one block off of Sepulveda and the other places. And couple families from Oak Street, who the first building's going up at 7 stories, were there saying that there's no even light setbacks and everything. These people are going to be in the backyard. The housing element is once every, 5 or 6 years, and the new planning is coming up again. And not only, it's not about accommodating this amount of people, but they cut deals where you allow extra building and housing just to accommodate this number of low-income and special needs and whatever housing. Instead of actually absorbing it into the community and just doing the straight number, which would be a wonderful solution. So my thought is that 1 or 2 floors of each lot be built to accommodate, because we have the housing element now, and we also have the housing element coming up again, because planning is already going to start, I think, next year. And you're going to have more requirements. Instead of avoiding the Wilshire Boulevard, instead of putting it all on one strip of people along the main avenues, start absorbing and planning ahead and putting 1 or 2 floors on each of these buildings that are coming in on both properties, make them special needs, make them low income. There are seniors in this community that live in multi-million-dollar houses, large ones, that would like to get out, but they can't. They don't have a place to go. They want to stay in the community. Let them move there. They're probably qualify as low income, because low income is not that low. And you free up more housing. You accommodate low-income people. There are people that go back to school, that have kids, having a family area. There's a lot of ways to get creative. It'd be nice if you accommodate the community and make it positive and productive, in addition to the art and parking and hotels and other revenue things. But it would be nice to see. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will go a little slower and make sure that everyone who's in council chambers, if you'd like to address council at this point, you're welcome to do so.
Good afternoon, council. My name is David Shavy. My business partner, Stefan Newman. We're locals in Manhattan Beach, grew up here. We're commercial real estate brokers now. We specialize in retail leasing and sales. I have a master's in real estate development from USC, and when I heard that 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard was going to be slated for repurposing, redevelopment, thought I'd share a couple ideas. Downtown Manhattan Beach desperately needs more parking, especially with the demolition of the site next to the Met Locks. So I thought that this would be a great opportunity to do another parking structure. I like the idea of having retail on the ground floor. I was looking at the site, and I think it would have great visibility from the corner of Manhattan Beach Boulevard and Valley, especially considering that The Vaughn's parking lot is just flat, so tremendous visibility, but having retail uses there could cater to a lot of uses, like a teen center or for an art gallery. So it could be a great way to give back to the community.
Yeah, additionally to add on, we see that downtown Manhattan Beach has changed so much. David and I both grew up here. I currently live on 40th Street in El Porto, and there's a constant demand for more retail, whether that's restaurants or clothing stores or breweries. If we had more restaurants on the ground floor at this potential site, not only would it be a tax revenue generator for the city, but yes, we need more parking. We can't get enough of it. That helps all of the businesses, all of the visitors, both here in Manhattan and frankly worldwide, and it'd be great for the city in general. And yes, if there's a way to incorporate some of the other great ideas that people have here, I think we could do that all in one place. So those are our recommendations, but we appreciate your guys' opportunity to speak to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you both. Anybody else in council chambers that would care to address council at this time? Seeing none, I'll ask Martha again, is anybody on Zoom that might wish to speak at this point in our meeting?
There's no request for public comments at this time.
Okay. I'm going to close public comment and thank my colleague, Councilwoman Haworth, for suggesting that we repoll those here and see if people want to speak again, because people may not have been familiar with the protocol. And let me just say, I'm pleased that there are a number of people who've not been to council before, and this has brought them out. That's part of the point of why we're holding this meeting this afternoon. So with that, I'll look to our city manager with a maybe description as we move on to the primary item of business under general business here tonight. Madam.
Thank you, Mayor Lesser. I would like to introduce our community development team to provide a presentation to the council and the public. However, I would also like to note that we have other departments here as well in case questions were to come up. So I'll turn it over to Michael Cadron, our interim community development director.
Thank you, Talene. And Mayor Lesser and members of the council, what a great way to start a study session. Just get the ideas flowing. So hopefully that's warmed you up a little bit. And what we're going to talk about tonight with Project Pulse is really the opportunities going forward for more members of the public to give you the same kind of input, with a lot of detail behind that as well. And so there's staff here from Community Development. Adam Feinstone is the planning manager. Eric Zanfleet is our traffic engineer, and they're here to support the discussion. We have Larry Cosmont, who's a consultant that's done a lot of work on Lot 3 leading up to this, even prior to the purchase of 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard. But to kick things off, Tari Kabengua is an associate planner with our department, and she's going to give you a complete presentation. And from that point, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you'll have.
Terrific. And while she's coming up, maybe I'll just mention to my colleagues, I would presume that as you have questions during the presentation, you're welcome to ask them, and then at the conclusion of the presentation, we'll have an opportunity to ask questions. And then for purposes of public engagement, there's an opportunity then after the presentation, after our questions, to be able to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, Mayor Lesser and council members. My name is Tari Kubengwa, and I'm the project planner for tonight's study session. The focus of tonight is the future redevelopment of two city-owned properties, 400 MBB, which we'll refer to as tonight as Manhattan Beach Boulevard, and parking lot 3. In case anyone here tonight was not able to attend some of the more recent city council meetings, we want to explain the Project Pulse name. After purchasing 400 MBB, city staff established Project Pulse as a coordinated approach to the redevelopment of both properties. The name Project Pulse represents the city's commitment to keep its collective fingers on the pulse of the community about the future development in downtown Manhattan Beach. This effort will be centered around a comprehensive public engagement program where we work with the community and city council to identify preferred uses for both sites. There are two purposes for tonight's study session. The first is to discuss redevelopment options for both properties, including early input we've received from the community at the Project Pulse kickoff meeting in May of this year. While there was an initial list of options for Lot 3 presented to City Council last December, now that we've purchased 400 MBB, we have the opportunity to reconsider the overall options for Lot 3. We want to note that these options are still on the table, but we can now think more broadly because the city has acquired this second property nearby. The second purpose is to explain our plan for getting the community's input. We're proposing a public engagement program to help identify the permanent uses for both properties. At the August 5th City Council meeting, the Finance Department provided a report related to bond financing for the 400 MBB acquisition. They provided a timeline that focused on that property and is shown here on this slide. The first part, highlighted in orange, actually applies to both 400 MBB and Lot 3. This first phase relates to deciding the future uses of both properties, which will be supported by a community engagement and visioning process that begins now and would conclude in July of 2026. Before we begin discussing the possible uses, we want to explain what this Project Pulse process will generally look like. This slide provides a general overview of that effort to brainstorm and choose uses. The first step was the community kickoff meeting in May, which started this entire process. This is when we started reaching out to the community and collecting initial feedback on redevelopment. We're currently in the stage highlighted here in orange just below that, which is the beginning of a back and forth process that includes city council discussions and additional community outreach and engagement. This back and forth is the same visioning phase described in the previous slide, which will last the next 11 months as we narrow down the redevelopment options. In August of next year, staff would be requesting City Council's decision on the type of project to move forward with at each property. Once those projects are chosen, then each can go into the design phase and funding, then permitting, and finally construction. We've staggered 400 MBB in Lot 3 because realistically, construction would not occur at both at the same time. We want to note that 400 MBB is on a faster timeline due to the bond financing for the property purchase. So that's why we've listed that one above Lot 3. To help provide some context for tonight's conversation, we'll begin with some background information on both properties. On this map, you'll see both sites highlighted in orange, with Lot 3 to the north at the corner of Morningside and 12th Street, much closer to City Hall and police fire. And 400 MBB is just to the south of Lot 3 at the corner of Morningside and Manhattan Beach Boulevard. And they're both adjacent to Metlocks, which is another city-owned property, which you can see in the top right, just near the Lot 3 label. And some additional context about 400 MBB is that it is much closer to residential uses than Lot 3. And so for this reason, because these sites are in such close proximity to each other, we are no longer thinking about Lot 3 by itself, because there needs to be good synergy between both of these sites. We wanted to note that we mailed postcards to property owners and occupants within a 300-foot radius of both sites to notify them of tonight's study session. So not only are these sites in close proximity, but they also share certain similarities. First, they have the same zoning of downtown commercial and are within the city's coastal zone. This means they share the same list of allowed land uses. And the downtown commercial zone allows for a range of uses, including residential, restaurant, retail, offices, commercial parking, and public facilities. This also means both sites have the same development regulations, such as their height limit. For example, their height limit is 26 feet, but some adjacent properties to the north of Lot 3 are at 30 feet. Second, they are similar in size. Lot 3 is about 15,500 square feet, and 400 MBB is about 16,500. Even though these sites have certain similarities, they also have their differences. One difference is their primary points of access and which streets they front. Lot 3 is more tucked away and off of Morningside Drive and was previously a parking structure, whereas 400 MBB is at the entrance to downtown along a main thoroughfare. During the May community meeting, the city traffic engineer, Eric Sanfleet, shared that Lot 3 is likely better suited for a public parking facility than 400 MBB. His initial assessment determined that a greater parking capacity could probably be achieved at Lot 3 than at 400 MBB because of the geometries and dimensions of both sites. Another difference is their neighboring uses. Lot 3 is primarily surrounded by commercial uses, whereas 400 MBB is surrounded by residential uses to the west and south, and as well as commercial uses. Since no decisions about the future uses have been made yet, it makes sense for the redevelopment options of the two sites to be considered together. And the City Council may decide that certain uses are better than others for each property. For 400 MBB, the city acquired the property in April. It had a vacant U.S. Bank branch, a surface parking lot, and drive-through ATM lanes. At the May 6th City Council meeting, temporary uses for the site were approved, including overflow parking for the existing commercial parking permit holders, and city staff restriped the parking lot and ATM lanes to create 26 parking spaces. New bicycle racks were also approved for the site, and those were installed in June, and there's a picture of those shown on the bottom right of this slide. For Lot 3, since the 1970s, it had been a 3-story public parking structure with 145 spaces and partially projected over the public right-of-way. And I want one thing. If you look at this image of Lot 3, it overhung on 12th, on Morningside, and also on Center Place. It was the Lot 3 parking structure was closed off to the public in summer of 2024 due to structural safety concerns and was demolished last November. Interim parking solutions were implemented, including a surface parking lot with 69 parking spaces, which was designed, permitted, and constructed over 11 months, and it opened to the public in June. Also, 56 new temporary parking spaces have been created around downtown. So those spaces, plus the 69 spaces in the surface lot, means that we have currently replaced 125 out of the 145 spaces that Lot 3 used to have through these interim solutions. Based on an economic development analysis, the city prepared with Cosmot companies, 3 types of redevelopment projects have been studied. This was presented to council last December, and a full copy is attached to the staff report. And this was when we were thinking about Lot 3 by itself prior to the opportunity to acquire 400 MBB. Because of the similarities between these two properties, these 3 development options can be added to the list of potential uses for 400 MBB as well. To summarize, at this moment, the potential uses suggested so far can be broken into 4 categories. The first is a new public parking structure. A second is a public parking structure with limited commercial uses, a hotel, and then the 4th category are ideas that have been sourced from the community. These next few slides summarize those initial options that we began looking at for Lot 3 prior to purchasing 400 MBB. This overview is not meant to limit the list of redevelopment options we can consider, but to recap what was discussed last December. The first option was to replace Lot 3 with only a parking structure. This could be done in a few ways: an above-ground structure, a partially above ground and partially underground structure. There's also the possibility of an underground connection to Metlocks. And lastly, the parking structure could be self-park or automated. As noted in the staff report, we would like direction about whether or not council would like us to continue pursuing the automated facility option. A second option was the parking structure with commercial uses, and that commercial use could be placed along the Morningside frontage. A third option was a hotel use. The report estimated that a 35-room hotel could be possible, which would require 39 parking spaces. And with this option, public parking may or may not be available to also fit on the site. As we discuss redevelopment options tonight, there are some general considerations we recommend keeping in mind. One is to consider a source of revenue generation at the sites, which could include public parking fees, and that could include meters and citations. For example, our annual revenue from Lot 3 for the last few years when it was fully operational was about $600,000. Another type of revenue could be commercial leases. Our annual revenue from Metlocks in fiscal year 24 to 25 was about $600,000. Because Lot 3 and 400 MBB are smaller in size than Metlocks, the revenue generated from each would likely be less than this number shown here. And for a hotel, the revenue could come from rent as well as the transit occupancy tax. And the report from December estimated that it's possible that a boutique hotel could generate about $750,000 in revenue from these two sources. To summarize, some uses may generate slightly more revenue, such as a hotel. But a public parking structure generates revenue and potentially a greater community benefit. A revenue-generating component is important to consider for the city's long-term financial resilience and being able to invest in our future. Excuse me. The community meeting that city staff held in May had three purposes. The first was to kick off the public engagement process before we decide what to do with both of these properties. We wanted to provide an open forum to meet with the community and get some early input to share with the City Council. The second goal was to summarize those options we just discussed that were presented for Lot 3 in December. And the third goal was to provide an early opportunity to discuss new ideas that had not yet been presented to City Council. During this meeting, we did an interactive activity with the attendees and answered the community's questions. There were 23 community members in attendance who provided different feedback about the redevelopment options for both properties. The people at the meeting included residents and business owners or employees, with more than 70% of participants being residents. As we discussed the potential uses for both properties, we were also looking for new ideas that had not yet been discussed, so that we could report back to the council for those to consider as well. There were some ideas that the council has already heard, such as parking, a hotel, parking with commercial uses. For parking, public parking, employee parking, and resident permit parking were all suggested. The new uses suggested were commercial, a library annex, a park or open space, multifamily residential, a social club, a visitor center, and a mixed-use development with more than one use. The mixed-use suggestions included parking with public space and live-work concepts. Before we finish the summary of the redevelopment options that have been introduced to date, we wanted to highlight some additional considerations beyond just revenue generation. A second consideration is the California Coastal Commission. Because both sites are in the coastal zone, we'll probably need to work with the Coastal Commission with respect to development regulations and replacement of parking from Lot 3. Some development regulations create constraints on redevelopment. One example of this ties back to replacing the parking capacity that Lot 3 used to have. The structure had 145 spaces across 3 levels, and parts of it were over the height limit and projected over the public right-of-way. To build a modern parking structure above ground within the height limit and within property lines, we would be limited to 2 stories and would only get about 150 parking spaces. So we would fall short of replacing all of the previous parking.
150? 150? Is that right?
105.
Okay.
105.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
We're sharp.
We would only get about 105 spaces, so we would fall short of replacing all of the previous spaces that we used to have at Lot 3. A third consideration is about parking specifically. If the previous amount of parking is not replaced at Lot 3, the city may need to consider creating that replacement parking at other downtown locations. The acquisition of 400 MBB could provide this type of opportunity, but it was not specifically acquired for that purpose. These 2 properties are being discussed together so that council can make the most informed decision about both. A fourth consideration is the Surplus Land Act. At the December meeting, council asked for more information about how the Surplus Land Act may factor into this process. In coordination with the city attorney's office, staff considered the applicability of it with respect to both sites and found that if we want to redevelop either site with a use other than only a public use, such as public parking, then that property can now be considered surplus land. Due to their small sizes, which are less than half an acre each, both properties are exempt from the requirements that they be made available for affordable housing development. But because they are in the coastal zone, the city will need to follow the process with the state that notifies park and recreation entities of availability to use as open space. If there is no interest for sale or lease, then the city proceeds with non-public redevelopment options. To reiterate, if the City Council directs staff to pursue only public uses, then the Surplus Land Act is not applicable. But if non-public or a combination of public and non-public uses are preferred, that will require us to go through the Surplus Land Act process. The last topic for tonight is to outline our plan for community outreach over the next 11 months. The community input being collected is intended to help council's decisions and discussions over these next months. For that reason, we suggest that most of the outreach happens earlier on in this process. This is represented by the first 2 tiers of this graphic on this slide. For this fall, we're proposing a booth at the Hometown Fair and the Farmers Market. The Hometown Fair is in October. We're proposing that we have a presence at the Farmers Market in October, November, and December. There would be a booth that is showing all of the redevelopment options that are still on the table after tonight, and would also provide the community with an opportunity to suggest ideas that have not yet been presented. We would also be meeting with community partners, including the Chamber of Commerce and DBPA. There can be focus groups to meet with residents, businesses, and property owners, including for downtown. Then in the winter of 2026, outreach could include city staff being at an older adult program event, hosting a planning commission study session, and the city also recently contracted with Flash Vote, which is a public survey platform that helps cities efficiently collect input from residents that can help inform local decisions. That platform is being used by other governments and can serve as a way to get better statistical data during community outreach efforts. We can use Flash Vote for a survey to collect additional feedback that way as well. Additional community events are proposed toward the end of the outreach process, shown here in spring of 2026. The first is a design charrette, which would be a one-day workshop run by city staff and a consultant with community outreach and design expertise. And it would focus on generating conceptual designs for the redevelopment options that are still on the table at that time. These design charrettes can give community members a chance to work together, explore design options, develop consensus, and create a shared vision for a project. We would host one charrette for 400 MBB and a separate charrette for Lot 3. And a final community event would be a workshop or an open house to get final feedback on the conceptual design that emerged from the design charrettes. Through these last 2 events and direction from council over the next 11 months, staff would intend to present conceptual developments for both properties for the council's consideration in August of next year. One part of this outreach effort will be to use a variety of communication methods to increase awareness of upcoming meetings and events for Project Pulse, such as newspaper advertisements and notifications by email and regular mail, as well as the strategies shown here on this slide. So to summarize, there are 3 topics we're seeking council direction on tonight. The first is to discuss and confirm the list of redevelopment options that staff should continue to explore and seek community input on during outreach over the next year. To recap, those current options are a public parking structure, which could be self-park or automated, a mixed-use development with a combination of uses, a hotel, a commercial development, a library annex, open space or a park, multifamily residential, a social club, and a visitor center. And you could think about it that the uses on the left are from the report that you were presented and that the council at the time was presented in December, and the options on the right are the community sourced ideas that emerged from the meeting in May. And if any community members in attendance tonight have thoughts about any of these uses, we would like to hear from you. So our question is there anything on this list that the council would no longer like staff to pursue? The second topic is code amendments. Earlier in this presentation, we explained how certain development regulations, such as height, create constraints on the redevelopment of the sites. The main one is the current height limit of 26 feet. For example, on Lot 3 with this height limit, we noted how we would not be able to construct an above-ground parking structure that would replace all of the previous 145 spaces that Lot 3 once provided. There are neighboring properties that already have a height limit of 30 feet directly to the north across 12th Street, as well as across Morningside at Metlocks. Our question for this topic is, does the council want us to pursue any code amendments to facilitate redevelopment? And the third topic is the public engagement program. Over the next 11 months, this proposes a presence at community events, focus groups with residents and business owners and property owners, a survey, study sessions, a design charrette, and community workshop. During this process, there would be city council meetings held in order for staff to provide updates and receive updated direction as the city council narrows down potential uses for both sites. We expect this program to run through July of next year, and various communication methods would be used to increase awareness of the upcoming meetings. Our 2 questions for this topic are, does the City Council approve of this overall community outreach approach and the strategies shown? And is there any feedback or suggestions for staff with respect to this program and the methods proposed? And to close, we wanted to provide some information about how to stay updated on this process. Prior to the May community meeting, we created a web page for Project Pulse, and I've shown a screenshot of that website here and also provided the web link. There's also an option to sign up for email updates, which is in the bottom of this screenshot, and then you can receive all of our email updates that way. And then in general, any community member is welcome to reach out to the Planning Division at any time with any questions about this effort, and we provide the Planning Division's email address here as well. That concludes my presentation. I and other city staff are present for questions, as well as Cosmos companies. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a very good overview. We'll start with council member questions, and then again, we will open it up to the public to ask questions or to make comments now that we've gotten the overview of the project. I'll start with council member Haworth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. Like the mayor said, I think it was a great path to show us what we have to do and what the steps will be. Subject to our discussion tonight, maybe we'll take some ideas off the table and maybe we'll add to the outreach program. But I think it's really important that everybody understands that we are seeking more public engagement on this project, not just tonight and throughout the fall and winter. So we can't get too much public engagement on this. And I also, I believe the mayor mentioned it in the beginning, how wonderful it was to see some new folks. And I mean, wow, we all were excited about that. Okay, those are my happy comments.
Can I also just add, we're happy to see everybody here, not just the new
Yeah,
folks.
yeah, all of y'all.
Glad to
Come
see
all
you
the
all
time,
here.
fine.
That's what you meant to
Also,
say.
mazel tov to Travis and Taylor, I'll just say that. Okay, anyway. Thank you for those in the know. All right, so when you said that parking lot 3, that would have to, because we'd have to follow the code now, we would only do if we only did 2 floors above, it'd only be 105 spaces.
Correct.
So, and we could accommodate for those spots at the other lot, or we could do subterranean parking.
Correct.
And an estimate, one gentleman brought up that we should look at our decision. I mean, if he, I think I'm going to paraphrase what he said, that if he was making a decision, he would be looking at it from a tax revenue situation, how much money can we realize, can we recognize? And that may be one way to make the decision, but there's also, other ways to make the decision. And I bring that up now because if we do subterranean, and this is a rough estimate, I believe subterranean spots cost about 3 times what a just top of the earth flat spot costs. Is that correct? Somebody?
I think
2 to 3 times. Okay, just to keep in mind, because yes, you're saying, okay, if we just, do an above ground parking, we can only go 2 floors, the way current code is, only 105 spaces. If we were to go below, we could do that, but it would cost more. And then, let's see. I'm sorry, so we didn't talk about any interim uses. Is it, and I asked this of my colleagues to consider, should we add that into our discussions at some point? Because this is all going to take a long time. So if we wait, are we planning to wait a year till we know, okay, now we're going to do this, and now let's talk about interim uses? Maybe we could use the bank for a pop-up or an art space. I'd like us to consider that. And I could tell you, under discussion and direction items, item number 1, I could give you my opinion on what I think we should drop, but I think we should wait for public comment first. Is that what you would like? And then, just with public engagement, again, can't have too much, right? And so I hear you say focus groups, et cetera. I know when we had the Urban Land Institute many, many years ago, talking about the general plan, the downtown specific plan. There's been some negative comments about what came up from that process yet. We had over 105, I think it was, maybe I'm focused on that because of parking, but we had so many community members spend hours talking about the downtown. And so I know that it would be really great if we actually actively went to, say, church and synagogues, if we went to all the different schools and asked them, if we went to the Neptunians, that's a great cross-section of people. So not just love the chamber, love the Downtown Business Association, but you'll get people who may not otherwise come in to talk about this. So I just want to encourage getting as much of that as we can. And I'll give my opinions later.
Great. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Franklin.
Sure. Thank you. So we can mark down this date as a seismic event of
It's a big deal,
Taylor's.
people.
Okay.
It's a big deal.
Thank you for the presentation. For those of you who haven't been along on this journey, it really does encapsulate all the things that we've been considering or feel that need to happen in order for this to be a truly inclusive decision with the community. So pleased to see it and pleased to have this event today. On slide 23, we talk about the allowance of going to 30 feet. Realistically, what would that get us? Like, it wouldn't get us a third level, I believe, of parking, but what would it get us?
I'm going to turn to Eric Zandvliet, city engineer, to ask if the 30 feet would get us the third level of parking.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. I'm Eric Zandvliet, the City Traffic Engineer, Pro Tem Franklin. By getting to 30 feet, you could get 3 levels of parking in on a surface to above. What ends up happening is that the top level is getting close to 30 feet, which happens to be that you can't have lighting above that unless you have some exemption for lighting.
So a lamp post would be?
So a lamp post would exceed the 30 feet.
Okay, but would that be all right, or does it have to fall within the 30 feet?
Depends on how it's written.
Okay.
We can make an exemption.
Okay. I see a nodding head. Does that mean?
That's correct, yeah, because it would be a code amendment technically.
Okay,
so,
code amendment.
It could be worded a certain way, so it
And
seems
it-
like Adam Feinstein wants to jump in here.
Thank you.
Seeing that way.
Appreciate that. Adam Feinstein, Planning Manager. Initial conversations that we've had with Coastal Commission staff have kind of gone down the road of potential increase in height to maybe match what's out there for the properties in the vicinity, i.e. Metlocks, and then I think properties to the north also of Lot 3 also have a 30-foot height limit, and also the discussion of potential ability to exceed height limit for things like lighting, elevator shaft, things of that sort. So we've had that initial discussion only with their staff, not with the commission, Coastal Commission itself. As long as there's a parking aspect to whatever project that might be going in a location, they seemed receptive to that discussion.
Okay. And if there was a third level allowed, the 105 becomes what in terms of number of parking spaces?
Each level above that, you can add between 65 and 70 parking spaces.
So it would be like 170 then?
No.
So we would go from 145 to 170?
That's the math.
Okay.
That squeezes every possible space out of that lot. It also includes a little bit of overhang or encroaching into 12th Street in order to do that.
Okay, and we had that before, so
We had that before.
pretty realistic?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So this presentation indicated that the first public presentation was on May 21st, 2025, and that was at Manhattan Heights. I was there, but I'm trying to remember, did that discuss both options? I think it discussed both options. So my question is this, I mean, that's 3 months ago. I mean, would it have been possible to continue these discussions at different places within the city? Because you had all the materials all made up, right? So I was just wondering why there was a 3-month gap.
Staff has been working on the back end to prepare not just for tonight's presentation, but to work with our finance team, work with our public works team on the engagement process, on the actual opportunities available for the sites. So we have been doing the background work to prepare for tonight and to prepare for what the next year of engagement looks like, and to get council's blessing really on that whole, the elaborate engagement scheme before we move forward. That May 21st meeting was to really get some ideas in addition to what we had already brought to the council on December 9th, which is what we presented as a part of the presentation today. And if council were to approve the engagement program this evening, either as proposed or with modifications, then we have the full support of the council to move forward, and we know, and the entire community will know exactly what the next steps are.
Okay, thank you. No further questions at this time.
Councilmember Charette.
Thank you, Mayor. Tari and Adam and Michael, good job on this report. Tari, good job presenting such a tough subject here tonight. And I too appreciate everyone being here. A lot of new faces, a lot of familiar faces. I think I counted about 40 people in the audience, which is incredible, and I think another 10 on Zoom, so that's wonderful that everyone's here, wants to talk about this topic and engage. You know, I'm going to talk to my strengths as the former city finance director for a number of years. You know, I guess I'm on slide 15 when it comes to the revenues. Quick question would be, I feel like we're ultra conservative on the rent and the transit occupancy tax. That's more of a comment than not. And then I guess a question for Eric, Eric Zanfleet. If we were to build something on top of Lot 3, how many spaces could we get one level underground if we expand to Morningside and 12th Street? If that's something you could answer.
So we have estimated a bunch of different kinds of options for different levels of parking. So the first level below the surface on Lot 3 would likely get you about 60 parking spaces. Now that, again, it also includes a little bit of encroachment into some right-of-way.
Thank you. And then can you remind me of, you know, we expanded parking. I know we lost about 150 in Lot 3. We expanded that parking into other areas such as Valley and some other downtown. What's the current net? We have about 70 on the surface level. What's the current net in town of those spaces that are still remaining? Because I know you removed some.
Correct. So we had 145 parking spaces in Lot 3. We added 70 parking spaces, 69 parking spaces on the surface level. We're shy about 75 spaces. We added 56 parking spaces, or we currently have 56 additional parking spaces. So we're about 20 parking spaces shy overall from what we used to have.
Great, thank you. And then, so realistically, when we need to replace the 145, we can utilize those additional parking spaces that are still in place due to adding them.
Correct. At this point, we don't have any plans to remove the ones that we have.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I have some other comments, but I'll wait after public hearing. Great, thank you.
Councilmember Tarnay?
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, team, for the presentation, and my apologies for being late. I had a little medical issue with family, and everything's okay, so thank you. I just wanted to follow up on the question regarding the parking spots, to piggyback on my colleague's question. Eric, sorry. Is that 66 that we've found around town, does that include those temporary spots at the U.S. Bank building? Or is that?
No.
No.
The 56 are around downtown, and then the US Bank has 26 that we've striped.
26, so, okay. So we're I'm not the math person, so
Yeah.
are we
Currently,
close?
We have more than we've ever had.
Yeah, we
Okay,
have more than
we have
yeah.
more than we ever have,
Yeah.
which is a
Good
nice
job.
problem to have. And we're always talking about parking and trying to squeeze in, but for me, it's just a balance of parking around town. If we were to add, under the scenario where we add a lot of parking between the two properties, is it possible for us to remove parking? I don't know what I know Coastal Commission has some coastal parking requirements. Are we able to remove some of our street parking just to create more space around town? Is that a possibility?
I think we'd have to evaluate that, and depending on the spots, I don't think that's a question we can answer without more information and analysis. But I would say that if we were to do mixed uses, for example, parking and a commercial use on either one or both of those sites, you also have to account for the demand that's generated by the new use. So it's not just replacement at that point, it would be replacement plus the new demand.
Okay, point. Okay, good point. Thank you. I'm here to listen to see what the community has to say, so I'll turn this back over to the mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Haworth, did you have a follow-up?
I had a follow-up, yeah. Someone brought up a social club, and I know that was brought up before. Just to clarify, that's a private club. That's not a public space. That doesn't qualify as a public space, really, or a public use, much like a visitor. Visitor center's on there. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that for folks.
That's correct. I believe the example of the Soho House would use.
Yeah.
Other examples in downtown would be the California Club or the Jonathan Club.
Et cetera. Okay, great. And I think, and again, we're not here to make a decision tonight, but it's so helpful to think of all the different puzzle pieces because, if we were to do first floor retail at Morningside, then all of a sudden you're taking out that level of parking, but then you could put some below and blah, blah, blah. So there's lots of different options. So.
I wanted to clarify some of the criteria for evaluating these many different options. For starters, the number of parking spaces, to pick up on a question that was asked by Councilmember Carney. What is the core number of parking spaces that we must provide downtown, however we come up with them, and on what basis?
So if we think only about what was lost from Lot 3, it's 145. But as our city manager, Talim Rizakanian, said, if we do a combination of uses or we do a commercial use or another use that has its own parking requirement, we also have to think about the demand that generates on top of just replacing the parking that was lost.
So in the ideal world, we'd offer many more spaces, right? So how should we be looking at that? Obviously, there are negative connotations for having an infinite number of parking spaces because that involves more cars traveling on the streets downtown and impacting both the residents as well as the commercial businesses. We could have too many spaces. So again, how can we better think about the number of spaces that we're targeting here, that aspirationally we're looking to provide?
I'm going to let our city traffic engineer answer because he knows everything about parking.
Pass that off.
Thank you. This is a great question. There are many different factors to think about how much parking you might want or might need in downtown. I'll give you some quick numbers here, and you can make any combination that you please. So with regard to our unmet parking demand, this is parking that's latent for the existing uses that we have in downtown. That's about 150 parking spaces that we're shy. This is part of our city parking management study that we're currently underway, and so they were able to calculate this based on our land uses. That doesn't include beachgoers in the summer. Also, if you were going to ask about the deficiency for Lot 3, so we're shy 75 parking spaces, correct, for that right now. If you're going to look at future demand is just ambient growth because the businesses are doing better or they're fully occupied, 100% rented out. That is 85 parking spaces. It's about 5% over the next 10 years. It's not much. If you wanted to build out the downtown to a 1-to-1 ratio without requiring parking as we allow per our code in the downtown area, so you can build 100% of your square footage based on your lot size without requiring parking. There's lots of businesses that don't have a 1-to-1 ratio. It's less than that. That's about 60 parking spaces. And then you can always consider whether or not you want to provide parking for sidewalk dining. Sidewalk dining can be a big range. It can go from 40 to 150 parking spaces if you are going to provide parking for sidewalk dining. So all those combinations are possible. Just wanted to let you know that we have a deficiency. So by taking away parking, we're just going to increase that deficiency or aggravate it.
helpful.
Does that help?
It does. I have more questions, but you want to interject with a question?
Well, just because you've talked about the outdoor dining, so that meant that if we allowed more restaurant spaces or tables, then there'd be just like we do an analysis of the inside seats to the parking that's required, you would need to add the outside seats to the parking that's required. Is that what you mean?
This number means that if we wanted to accommodate the parking for the outdoor tables without taking it away from the indoor tables. So right now, we don't allow occupancy of the indoor tables if you have outdoor tables.
Right.
On a 1-to-1 ratio.
Okay.
And Eric, can you clarify that the numbers you mentioned, for example, the unmet parking demand of 150 is beyond the 145 that Lot 3 used to have?
Yes, so that assumes, well, actually, it assumes that, yes, it does assume that those parking spaces are in place.
Thank you. So let me continue with just larger criteria here, because there's so many proposals that we've already received. There has to be a financial element to this, because we'd love to build all kinds of things, but there are financial limitations on what we can build. So while we have this initial COP, that is the certificate of participation, perhaps I'll have you maybe summarize that. What financial cap should we be thinking about? Because in the ideal world, we go subterranean, maybe multiple levels, but there's a cost. At some point, there's a cap. How should we be looking at that at this point, dependent upon what usages, based on community input, council directs?
I would like to invite our finance director to respond to that question. And in her response, I would ask that she emphasize our opportunity for bonding projects like this.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Libby Bretthauer, your finance director. Thank you for the question. First, I wanted to clarify that the certificates of participation that we just are in the process of issuing was to reimburse ourselves for the cost of purchasing the 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard site. So only for the purchase price, has nothing to do with the actual construction design costs that are going to be upcoming. So I wanted to clarify that. And then certainly we will be looking at all financing options depending on the recommended uses. There are certain stipulations with tax-exempt financing, which comes at a lower cost, that we have to analyze those considerations. So I think once we get closer to knowing what the potential desired uses are, then we can really start to analyze all the financing options and weigh those with the public, with the council. But at this time, we have limited funds budgeted for Lot 3 and 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard for some initial design costs. But there is definitely, not sufficient funding for full construction costs or anything like that. So we're probably looking at debt issuance and hopefully, as many have mentioned, revenue-generating ideas that would help us pay for that debt service.
Clearly, following some direction, it would be helpful to have some sort of projection so that we know what we really can be talking about, as opposed to an open-ended dreaming all of the potential uses, right?
Yeah.
Mayor, since the
Please.
finance director's up, if I can just ask her a quick question. So can you talk a little bit about the timeline that's involved with the put bonds that I think we talked about earlier in August? If you can just kind of, I thought there was like a 3-year limit, but I'll let you kind of give an overview because there's a lot of people listening for the first time that they're hearing about this. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for the question. I think, do we have that slide? I'm not sure which slide number it is.
Mr. Mayor.
All right, this slide we did first introduce on August 5th when we came to the council with the approval of our debt issuance for the certificates of participation. So we are here tonight with the first, first part of the slide on the left, the vision, and kickoff of the Project Pulse project. So the remaining pieces as you move to the right are the initial timeframes that we expect to keep moving.
There you go. Amy, did you set that up?
That wasn't me.
happened? What just happened? Breaking news.
Yes.
Breaking news.
We'll certainly get that in the minutes, I'm sure. And I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, being from Kansas, so it's been a great day. Yes, super great day.
Wow.
Okay, so as I was stumbling through this slide here, so as we talked about on August 5th, we're kicking off this process tonight with, starting to come up with a vision with the community input. Now, our certificates of participation that were issued last week, there is an initial put period that is for 3 years. So our intention is to refinance them before July of 2028. However, if we're not able to come to a full decision by that time, there are some things we could do to either roll that soft put period to give us some more time. We'll be able to come up with some solutions if it's looking like, if by January of 2028 we do not have solid construction documents in place, which was our intention and plan. So.
Great, thank you. And I just wanted everybody to know that we're on the clock. So
that is true.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking on the clock, I believe Councilmember Haworth had a quick follow-up.
It was, I just wanted to clarify, correct me if I'm wrong, when we talk about bonds, we're not talking about like what the school district did or, we don't go out to the public to vote to raise the money, to put on your property tax. We are financing those through our asset values and our financing and all of that, just like we did. So that's
Yes.
something different.
These are very specific type of bonds,
Right.
very common in the state of California, called certificates of participation. They do not require voter approval like general obligation bonds do.
Right.
But there's a very public process to it. We've come before the council on several meetings to discuss the items, and we're happy to answer any questions.
So we will go, once we have decided what to do, then we'll understand the construction costs, then we go out for the financing of those. Okay, thank you.
So I have some quick questions, which I'll try and get, maybe ask for some shorter answers to, and that is as follows. First, it was referenced, and it's indicated in the staff report, that there are limitations on using 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard for parking per a preliminary analysis by the traffic engineer. Can you explain that, please? And what does that mean for purposes of how we should be considering actually using this lot?
Thank you.
Sure. The dimensions of 400 MBB are not square or not rectangular. And so in that case, there's a lot of wasted space when you use it for parking. What ends up happening is you're not able to get two loaded aisles or loaded parking aisles with an aisle in between. And so you have to go parallel parking or something like that. It's not efficient. So you can only get maybe 30 to 40 parking spaces per level. And that's very expensive when you're going down, as was noted. And going up, it just is not an efficient way to go. You can handle the parking that's required for whatever you do put on that property with that lot.
Another question had to do with the potential use of Lot 3 for a hotel. And you referenced in passing, or it was referenced in passing, that it could accommodate 39 parking spaces, but it's uncertain if public parking would be accommodated with, I presume, subterranean parking. Can you explain or re-summarize this was presented at the December session of the prior council. Can you explain how we'd be able to accommodate our need for a certain number of spaces for the public, as well as be able to properly provide parking for a hotel, depending on how large it is? And granted, this is still conceptual, but what is the general idea if we're thinking about a hotel in conjunction with a parking use at Lot 3 and 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard?
Sure. So the hotel example from the December analysis was basically saying if you looked at the code requirement for a hotel of that size, it would translate to 39 parking spaces. What is uncertain is whether or not we could also accommodate public parking, and especially public parking to replace the 145 that were lost through Lot 3's demolition. If you think about our development regulations, such as height, building within the property lines, it would probably be difficult to get that hotel with parking for that, the demand for that use, as well as the 145 spaces for public parking, you'd probably need several levels of subterranean parking to stay within the height limit. And as we've explained, subterranean parking is more costly than above ground, but there are pros and cons to above versus subterranean.
Thank you. Is there an opportunity to explore what the long-term plan is for the Vons lot adjacent to 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard?
Yes, absolutely. We could connect with the property owner and initiate some discussions and just generally gauge interest in redevelopment or, understand what their plans are for that property.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, I presume that staff is able to do quite a lot in-house, but would need to contract out for certain of these analyses to refine them. And that would be based on what the direction is and community input tonight in part. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Franklin?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I just want to give the public an idea of the cost differential of the various parking spaces we're talking about. We just went through what we're calling a temporary parking lot with Lot 3. So that would be considered a surface parking spot. Then we talked about a tiered parking, so above ground. And then we talked about subterranean. We got an answer that it was, on a ratio. But what are the actual dollar numbers that we could work as for an estimate?
And Eric Zanavili, city and traffic engineer, could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe right now a parking space is costing approximately $50,000 at a ground level. And above ground, it goes up to $75,000.
And
below it's 100.
And what?
Below is 100,000.
Okay.
Actually, can we have that clearly stated for the record? It's a pretty
Yes.
important piece of
Yes.
information. Thank you.
Parking spaces today are costing $50,000 per space for above-ground spaces, surface level, sorry. 75,000 for above the first level, so second level, third level, and 100,000 per space for below ground.
Is that, can I just quickly follow up?
Yeah.
Is that a number that would require further analysis, or that's a pretty reliable rule of thumb based on current costs of construction today?
As we proceed, we will continue to confirm these numbers. The numbers we are providing are based on a fairly recent discussion with our parking consultant.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. And then in the presentation on slide number 12, there was a talk that there was talk about Cosmont companies giving us a presentation of some options that are found. And one of them was called self-parking versus automated facility. Can you give us an idea what automated facility means and where we might find an example of it?
So you can think about a self-park facility as what you typically see. There could be, a kiosk when you enter, you pull a ticket, and then you park the car yourself. That's what we mean by self-park.
Right.
Automated parking facilities are a newer technology, and it's essentially you would pull into a bay or a little car elevator, and you leave your car behind, and the parking structure functions like a robot, and it's parking all of the spaces into slots in the structure, and no people actually go in to park their car or retrieve it. When you come back, you call your car back, the bay or elevator delivers your car back to you, and then you leave.
And was there an indication? It's pretty good, the Jetsons, that's fine, I like it. But wasn't there an indication that you could get more cars in there because you don't have to go as high?
Correct. You could get more capacity because you don't have to account for people trying to maneuver in and out of parking spaces, so you don't need parking aisles. You wouldn't need an elevator or stairs for accessibility for people moving throughout the facility in that way. So you can basically Tetris cars.
Tetris cars. Okay, not Jenga. We don't want to do Jenga. Okay. All right. Okay, good. Thank you. And where is that technology deployed that we could take a look
Sure.
at?
City of West Hollywood, at their city hall, they have an automated parking facility. And there are a couple of other locations throughout Southern California, but, you know, there is some uncertainty about maintenance, and there isn't a ton of data about how that will work in a coastal environment like ours.
Right.
Mayor Pro Tem Franklin, the other example is in Culver City at the Helms Bakery.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's a different system than the City of West Hollywood one, but they're both considered automated parking facilities.
Okay. That's a little closer to our bubble, so that's great. Okay, well, thank you very much.
So would it be as reliable as perhaps escalators near
boy.
coastal?
Yep.
Councilmember
I
Schirelli.
have a really quick question for Eric Zamfleet. Can you tell us, and I know we have peaks and valleys as far as parking throughout the year. Can you tell us the occupancy rate of a parking space in aggregate averaged over 1 year? I remember back in the day, it used to be maybe 70%. I know you're doing a
Yes.
parking management study, so.
Yeah, we were able to get those numbers from our city parking management study, our data. We did parking data collection in summer of last year, July of last year, and we also did fall counts, off-season counts in October of last year. In October of last year, we had lost Lot 3 by that time, but the percentages are still good. So if you're looking at the average occupancy for downtown parking spaces on an annual basis, it's about 78%.
78.
If you look at and I have to let you know that that's the average over the course of the whole day.
Sure.
That's good for numbers for like revenue and things like that. When you're looking at what's the peak occupancy for the entire day, that's the peak occupancy over the course of the year. That's about 92%. So the parking space hits the max, or the parking areas hit the maximum of about 92% occupied at least once per day.
I'm not following.
Let me maybe describe it in a different manner.
The high and the low point.
So,
then we just-
yeah,
Sorry.
the greatest occupancy of our downtown is 92% every day. So the 92% of our parking spaces are filled up at least one time per day.
Okay.
Yeah. That makes everyone think that they're actually full, and sometimes they are 100% occupied. But you can't find a spot at 92% occupied because people are moving in or moving out of other spots.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Howard.
Thank you. So I feel like we're talking about Lot 3 way more, or asking more questions about Lot 3 compared to the 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard. And so it's sort of more of a comment because, you know, we could do a hotel or some parking over there, we'd get less, but we've been referencing Lot 3, but all the options are still available for 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard, correct? I mean, I'm looking at you, I'm looking at my colleagues, so like, you know, it's just, and when we get into our dialogue, maybe we'll talk about it more. I am, again, we're not going to make too many decisions tonight, but I just want to counsel us that we've really focused on Lot 3, at least that's my observation.
Yeah, and I think like until we hear from the public and.
Yeah, more and more and more, yeah, for sure, but I just wanted to point that out.
I was going to add, I didn't push the button, but I just wanted
You're the
to
mayor.
clarify, however, that with 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard, we just heard from the traffic engineer that there are some limitations on the amount of parking capacity that it would have. Are we going to need to engage outside resources to fully flesh out how many parking spaces can realistically be accommodated there, depending upon the other use that might be, other usages that we might want to explore? How do we drill down on the number of parking spaces?
Someone better than Eric? Come on.
Yeah, you need two Erics.
I also think that depends on whether or not the council would be interested in having a secondary use on that site, because that would definitely complicate that analysis, for which we would need an outside consultant.
Okay. The other question I has to do with the Surplus Lands Act. It was mentioned in passing that should we be exploring a supplemental private use of some sort, we would need to make this available for a parks and recreation use. Could you define that a little bit better, please?
Yeah, I probably should address that. Tari did an excellent job explaining the Surplus Land Act. So when we first looked at this issue, so typically under the Surplus Lands Act, you have to provide it to affordable, agency, houses that build affordable units, housing units. But if the lots are too small, like these two lots, you do not have to do that. But there's a little additional quirk because it's in the coastal zone. So in the coastal zone, you have to provide it to parking, parks and recreational entities. And so we did a little bit of analysis, like, what does that mean? So Manhattan Beach, Parks and Rec is one. We don't have any federal park regional groups. There could be regional, it could be the county. So if you want us to look into that further, but those are the only two we could identify at this time. It's not like if you're out in the desert and you've got, state, federal, all different types of parks and rec entities. We're very limited here.
Great. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Franklin.
Yes, so talking about 400 MBB, and I read the staff report. I saw geometry and I just went a little nuts there, but isn't there ways, even though well, first of all, can you explain what the access, ingress and entrance and exit? What would the entrances and the exits look like? Would they both be on Manhattan Beach Boulevard? Would you split them up? Recommend splitting them up? And I know you didn't have a chance to go through design work, but.
And to clarify, Mayor Pro Tem Franklin, is that question in a hypothetical scenario where it would be purely parking?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question again. The Manhattan Beach Boulevard frontage is a prime piece of real estate. It has great, frontage views and exposure. You could put the driveway on Manhattan Beach Boulevard. It's very close to Morningside Drive, and so you have a little bit of conflict between cars that are making maneuvers and changes there. And it takes up the entire frontage. So you basically just look at an entranceway to the driveway, to the parking garage. You can put the parking access on Morningside Drive and put turn restrictions on it so they don't go through the neighborhoods to get there or to come out. And that's probably a more logical place for you to take access to the parking structure. It's not, it's adjacent to residential areas, and so that's not ideal either.
Okay, and could you cantilever that over the sidewalk like the former Lot 3?
That's not very practical in today's day and age. You'd have to go up to the second level before you could even do that.
Right, okay. And there is that potential, the third level, at least at 30 feet.
If that was approved.
Right, okay. All right, thank you.
It's a much better site if you combined it with Vaughn's. It's a much better site if you combined it with Vaughn's.
Yes.
If you combine it.
If
you combine the two properties.
Are we going after Baby
combine it with
Vaughn?
Yes.
Oh, no, don't go after Baby Vaughn.
Just going to say, I didn't even think that was part of the discussion.
No, it's not.
Councilmember Tarnay.
I just wanted to piggyback on that question, Eric. So we're talking about the footprint of 400 MBB being a little difficult if we do parking above ground. What about if we connect it with Metlocks? There have been some discussions about connecting whatever we do Lot 3 and the 400 MBB, and we do underground parking, and we connect it to Metlocks. Is that a possibility? And B, would we get more space because it's all under city property at that point?
So for Lot 3, let me get a little bit of feedback here. For Lot 3, it is very possible, and from an engineering standpoint, it's very possible to connect Lot 3 to Metlocks. By connecting the lower levels of Metlocks and Lot 3, you don't have to provide a ramp, which takes up space trying to get up to the surface. And so you could stay on the same level as Metlock's lower level and have additional parking. You could also tuck that parking in underneath 12th Street a little bit and be able to maximize your parking footprint. That access would be on the second level down. For 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard, it is not practical to go across the street of Manhattan Beach Boulevard. There's just too much underground infrastructure underneath Manhattan Beach Boulevard in order for it to be practical.
That's a bummer. That's it.
Okay, Councilmember Sharif.
Last question, I was just going to piggyback on Councilmember Tarnay's. So you mentioned that, in your opinion, that parking would be limited above ground for 400 MBB.
No, I have not said that.
Oh,
You
but
could
it
do-
would be limited
You
as
could that, it just is not maximized.
maximized.
Mhm.
What if you were to do underground? Is it the same problem? If you underground 400 MBB and utilize, let's say, Morningside, or just expand it a little bit?
If you got a little bit creative and squared it out underneath Morningside Drive, then you can actually get some good parking underneath.
Thank you.
Expensive parking.
Yeah, not
But
cheap.
parking.
But, yeah, but
Yeah.
what you pay for.
Oh, good point.
Okay. Any other council member questions or comments at this point? Thank you. I guess just for purposes of understanding how many people would like to address this point, can I just have a brief show of hands of how many people would like to speak? And you can have more, 1, 2, 3.
No, but
Very good.
do you want to comment, though, about if they spoke before? Or are you going to let, it's a workshop?
I think it's a
let it.
workshop, so my own inclination, the question is whether
job.
those who, typically in our meetings, when people have spoken about an item that's on an agenda, they are limited to only speaking at one point in the meeting. However, we only have this one item, and the whole intent of tonight is a workshop. So
Perfect.
unless there's objection, I would propose we allow whoever would like to speak and raise questions to be able to do so. So with that, we'll open it up to public comment.
Me again. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Lesser and council members. First of all, great presentation. That was really excellent in terms of getting overview and some of the limitations and constraints that we have. I've got 5 items I want to hit real quick. First, Honorable Mayor, I really appreciate the focus on cost. The question is, what can we afford? And there's got to be something we can do to say, what can we afford? It might be in terms of what's the size of the bond that we could raise? And that would be the maximum that we have out there. The other point I think important to emphasize on the cost side is that this is competing with other things. And we have to make sure our constituents know that. So we talked about the bag pool, other things that we have on the list that we'd like to get done. And this is going to compete with that and what we can afford to do. So when we look at our process and our decision-making process, I encourage us to take that into consideration, so we're taking that context in the decision-making. Second, on the process of the decision-making, I think what's going to be really important is for the people who are going to make the final decision, which is the council, to really think about the criteria you're going to use to make this decision. Because it's important to share that with staff, so as they prepare and they do the research and they have their study sessions, they're really focused on going what that is, going after that information, be it finance, being it adherence to certain items, or whatever you guys have as particular pet peeves around this thing that you want to get solved. Along those same lines, we've been talking here about ideas. When I've worked in home construction, we talk about needs and wants. I think it'd be really important for us to say, what are the critical needs we have as a city, and try to get those clarified. So parking was a big discussion here. It's going to be varied depending on what our solutions are, but we should have good clarity on what the needs are around parking. Do we have a hotel need? Is that clear to us? We can figure that out by looking at our occupancy rates of the local hotels. But what are the other needs that we have in our community? Let's try to figure that out and differentiate that from wants, because that should be part of the criteria I suggest you guys consider. The comment on the financials, when I saw the difference between revenue of a hotel versus parking, $750 versus $600, I don't see a big sway point on that one. That's just a comment. On the time before we actually could break down, I think it looks like January 2028 is when we have construction documents done. And I think that could be optimistic depending on how fast we go through this process. But that's 18 to 20 months away. I think this is an incredible opportunity to do something short-term. I love the idea of doing something with the artwork, but other pop-up ideas. You know, if we could do something in the next 4 to 6 months where we actually have, you know, part of our ideas getting posted in there, or over the next 18 months, there's a part of that area is ideas and our charrettes, and those get in there so people can do a tour, that'd be advisable. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, council members, Mayor, Carol Perrin. I just want to broaden the discussion a bit, because really, I think one of the boxes was other ideas. And I think that, you know, everything that's been discussed so far has been about commercial activity and densification. I mean, more cars, more businesses, more hotels, more everything. And I think that we have to strike, or look at striking a better balance. And I think that went to what the last gentleman was talking about with needs and wants. I mean, we have a lot of needs in this community that would benefit the community and would benefit the residents that aren't being addressed. You know, I understand that we need to get the parking, and my suggestion is that we do that on Lot 3. But on 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard, there are lots of options. It's an irregular shaped parcel, and we have a lot of needs that could be permanently enhance our city. You know, if I did a little review of other small towns all across the country, and they have taken public lands. They have added playgrounds. Our little playground here is so busy, kids have to wait online. Dog park, it's a shame that we don't even have a decent dog park, and we have 20, 30 dogs in it at a time, and we're probably the only community that doesn't separate small and large dogs because we just don't have the space. What does this mean economically? It means that if we don't have to spend a lot on development on both lots, and at the same time, we actually increase property values, because the people who moved to Manhattan Beach moved here to have somewhat of a small town, downtown feeling. And to just increase densification, I think, should not be the only goal. I like the idea of maybe a permanent art space, a dog park, a child park. You know, I even looked up, it's legal to have a community tech center for adults, children, kids. You can do that, a city can do that, and get revenue. Same thing with the child care facility. So, I mean, there's a lot of needs we have in this community that won't require a lot of additional parking spaces, a big outlay, and we can balance the need for additional parking with what's going to enhance Manhattan Beach as a mixed-use, wonderful residential community. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
I'm back. Hi there, folks. I just want to clarify what I had said regarding the open-air marketplace. When the gentleman did say it would be a spot for high-end artwork, that's the type of client that I envision for this space. Like I had mentioned, high-end, beautifully designed, but only temporarily till you decide what you're going to do with the actual, you know, development of this, because it's highly visible, and whatever you choose to, that's fantastic. I was just saying in the interim. And then as far as a parking solution, I believe that the Performing Arts Center, it lies dormant, that entire lot over by, you know, Aviation and Manhattan Beach Boulevard. If you could maybe create something with them, and Manhattan Beach becomes a destination similar to the French Riviera, and they're all coming here, but they're being trolleyed in, and they park there, so somebody would have to broker a deal with the city of Redondo Beach to have that parking. Hardly ever, it's always vacant. Something like that, or even purchase a couple Waymos. If you purchased a couple Waymos for the city and just had them trolleying in the people in and out, that would stop congestion in the city. It would offer a solution for parking.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Ali Shofa again. My question was more regarding the selection criteria we talked about. I feel opening up to public also means you become vulnerable, which also means people have expectations, and probably guiding a lot of people in those expectations is having the criteria, but also communicating them, right? And I had a few, because we could decipher some of the criteria already based on all of your amazing questions and also Tari's presentation. And I thought indeed the zoning criteria or terms of use of the spaces could be a really important one based on everything we heard. The business case, which is all about financials, return on investment, the parking demand volume, what does it solve, what does it bring for problems, and the synergy between the two spaces. I thought residential happiness. I don't know if that's maybe too high a term, but just to build on Jessica, indeed, we're also here for the residents. And maybe having some sort of a wow factor. So something we don't have yet it be a dog park, a teen space, or I thought something new and unique could be a great criteria as well. That would just be my top level ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ray Joseph.
One second, Ray. If anyone else would like to speak, maybe if you could come down to the row right behind the podium, that would be helpful. Thank you, Ray. Please.
So a couple of ideas. One, what if the parking lot on South Valley was expanded? That's a bunch of open land. Just go down the green belt a little bit there over by Vaughn's, and you can pick up some parking spots there. And then the other idea I had was down the Strand, the parking lot's there, they're elevated. What if there was a parking level below it? So you don't increase the height of those parking lots, but you put one underneath them. Then you double the parking there. So you pick up a lot of parking for downtown Manhattan Beach. One spot I would like you to actually eliminate a couple parking spots is on Valley just before you get to Manhattan Beach Boulevard, because you can't make a right turn because all the cars are parked right up to there. So if you eliminate 2 spots there, it'd make it a little bit easier for traffic to be able to turn through town and not create all the bottleneck on Valley. And then, of course, if you don't allow food truck parking, then that frees up more parking. So just some ideas, but I think if you do the thing on Valley, there's a lot of parking spots you can pick up there.
Great. Thank you.
So, thanks.
Thank you, Ray.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Lesser and Council. Maureen McBride, I'm a resident and also a business owner here. 28 years ago, I drove down Manhattan Beach Boulevard for the very first time, and it was really an unforgettable experience, from looking at the iconic Roundhouse Pier to the beach to the amazing, vibrant downtown that we had that was full of residents and visitors and people milling about. Within an hour, I bought my house. 3 years, literally did. Moved here two months later and became a resident. Few years later, unbeknownst to me, I became a business owner in our downtown community. So the intermingling of this community and how much I love it and it means to me, both personally and professionally, is enormous. And I think it's the same for most of the business owners in downtown Manhattan Beach. Today, we have a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-generation opportunity to shape the future of our downtown. The challenge is clear. How do we modernize while preserving the small-town charm and character that make Manhattan Beach so special? Parking and transportation, while they're not glamorous, and we've talked about it a lot tonight, they are essential. We were in a meeting yesterday about parking, and Eric has alluded to, we're at a deficit at much larger than what we really think we are. And restoring that deficit is really vital as part of the solution. We also should be looking at people mover types of things, whether it's the downtowner or it's a trolley or those type of things where we can move people in and out of those major corridors that get so busy, especially in the summer months. So that would be something I would also be looking at. An option worth considering that I've heard tonight too is, an annex to the existing beautiful boutique hotel that we have downtown and looking at subterranean parking. This type of project does 3 key things in my estimation. It helps restore the parking, it generates significant TOT taxes and revenue, and it brings visitors in town who dine, who shop, and use our local services. In other words, it creates a sustainable economic value while supporting, not undermining, the independent businesses that make downtown Manhattan Beach so unique. But this conversation is bigger than just one project. We know that there's other things happening with Bank of America, so we need to be looking at those. Every decision must be guided by a simple question: does it benefit the residents? Does it benefit the businesses? And also the visitors? And we should also be looking at prioritizing green space, cultural amenities, curated shopping experiences, dining and entertainment, and smart, safe traffic planning so that we can ensure our downtown remains a place where people want to gather and generations want to come for the future. So I urge you to lead with vision and balance to safeguard why Manhattan Beach is so extraordinary, and plan boldly for a vibrant, not violent. It's been a long night, but for a vibrant and resilient future.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
You're
No
doing
violence.
so good.
You're doing so good.
Thank you. Please. Please.
Hi, Jennifer O'Meara again. Just a couple questions, a couple comments, and thoughts on brainstorming along those lines. First of all, on the park issue, what % has to be park on the new, they said that we have to use Parks and Rec. What % of the project has to be devoted or used by Parks and Rec or
Why don't you
other-
ask your questions and then we'll seek answers at the end.
Right.
What % must be utilized for parking
Right.
of the lot? Okay.
Right, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't addressed. Vaughn's comment, great idea, but also you have 2 units behind the property as well, and a public-private partnership with those families as well could be really interesting, expanding the 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard property backwards. And also that affects your financing if you have public-private partnerships on both sides, the bonds and the other. The parks idea I thought was fascinating. And so you looked at parking being the 3rd floor, kind of with the 30-foot level. You also can look at 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard and think about what you could do on the 3rd floor there. And if you've ever been to Salesforce Park, I don't know if anyone's been here, it is amazing. And that was a public-private partnership, and it's absolutely a gem of San Francisco. And if you go on there and you walk around, it is over the top, and you could do a Manhattan Beach version of that on the 3rd floor because you wouldn't exceed that level as well. And then just on the parking, back to parking again, at $100,000 a spot, $50,000 a spot, and 75, then the underground is only a 1/3 more than the 2nd level, not 1 or 2x. So that's it. Okay, thank you. Oh, one other issue. Sorry. Housing is a need, so a multi-use thing is really important as far as I'm concerned.
Good. Thank you.
Michael Zislis, downtown business owner, resident, 40 years almost, 38 years. Proud of that. Thank you, council. Thanks for how fast you guys built the parking structure, took the other one down. Thank you for your negotiations with the demolishing crew, getting it done on budget. I also want to thank the community for Measure MBB. I mean, that was one of the things I think that kind of saved the city. People don't really understand it, but it really did financially. And I think your decisions going forward could be the next step to save the financially. The other gentleman mentioned 600 or 750,000, 750 being the hotel, 600 being the parking. If you did what you've already proven, which is Metlocks, you get 600 for the underground parking and you get 750 for the top part. So I think that's the best financial thing. You know, I have an inside interest here. I own Shade Hotel, and it's a perfect space. The day you tore it down, I started my designs. They're fully done. You know, I came up with a way to come up with 90 parking spots underground per level. If you just capture half of Morningside and half of 12th Street, not all of it, because you got to keep the, and then you can connect to Metlocks, which I think would be fantastic. It would kind of help the traffic flow. Just, you know, I just think, you know, I like the social club idea. That was great. Put it on top. I'm okay with that. I loved all the plans for Lot M. Is that what you call it? Lot 400. But I don't know that I'd like you putting these 2 meetings together. They're like 2 separate entities to me. So I'm just telling you that, you know, I want to speak for 3 minutes. I'm going to use the 3 minutes to talk about the project I want, but I really have a lot of input for the other project. I think I love the art area, I love the visitor center, I love a community thing for the kids. And then I also like the idea of some kiosks out there with some cheaper food. I hate to say it, but our kids have been priced out of Manhattan Beach. Like, where can they go get a corn dog, a hot dog, a fruit bowl, shave ice? There's just a lot of great ideas we can use with that space temporarily. When I say temporarily, I think it's going to take you 5 to 10 years to get lot 400 or whatever we call it. I think I like somebody's idea of, putting it together with Vons. Vons is selling stores, and wouldn't it be nice to have a premium store in our town, like a big store with all the options right in our downtown? That would be something I think the community would love. Then you could do the Sister Metlocks across the street. And my hotel would only be 24 rooms, so I only need 24 spaces when you're doing your calculations in your head, because I saw the reports at 36. But Shade Hotel has 37 rooms, and we have probably 6 guests park a night. So most people Ubered in from the airport or shuttle in, just so you know. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you. Michael? Yes. Could I just get that clarification?
Go ahead.
Of the parking spaces ratio to guests? Did you say 6?
6.
For 34 rooms?
38 rooms.
38 rooms.
He has more, but that's how many.
I have 30, the law is back then, you have to have 1 space per room.
Right, no,
I have 38 spaces, but about 6 guests park a night.
Right. Okay, got it.
But when we first opened 20 years ago, it was probably triple that. But it's just every year more people are Ubering. They don't want a car rental. They just want to come to Manhattan Beach and live the dream.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, that's an important number.
No, clarification.
Good evening, Karen Komatiski, Parks and Rec Commissioner. I just want to make a clarification. We do have dog parks in the city of Manhattan Beach. You probably already cut the ribbon for it up at Pollywog Park a few weeks ago. So I just want to make sure that that is stated for the record.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Derek Coleman, resident. This meeting has been great. Thank you. I think it's been well organized and very informative. I just kind of wanted to bring up, I think the parking is really important, obviously, and I'm glad we're spending a lot of time on it. It's going to be the lifeblood of the businesses downtown. But for 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard, I think it's a little bit of a almost misnomer to call it Manhattan Beach Boulevard, because 90% of it is on Morningside. And Morningside is an alley at best. It's not a two-way road. It's not easy in. It's not easy out. And I'm just talking about Morningside. If you go south on Morningside, and I'm sure you've all been in that in some form or fashion, but even on the weekends and on the holidays, it's just amplified by 10x. You go towards Morningside and you hit 10th place, your options are to go left, another kind of one-way street. You have to maneuver, you have to wait for traffic, and then you're forced to go south on Valley. Your other option is to go west, and then you hit Crest, and that turn is a right angle, impossible for some cars to even make the turn. There's 2-point turns, even if there's no traffic on Crest. So the traffic part of this is just, I'm surprised there's not more conversation about that, because that's a real issue. And the only option would be to have the access completely on Manhattan Beach Boulevard, but as that's been talked about, that's pretty difficult as well, because it is just such a small little spot on Manhattan Beach Boulevard. So I just wanted to make sure that that's going to be a real focal point of this conversation, is the traffic. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Oh, sorry, one last clarification. When we were talking about the parking places, I had a question in the needs analysis. Was that for all of Manhattan Beach, or was that just for Manhattan Beach downtown?
David, we'll take the question and I'll ask it at the end of public comment. Thank you.
Hi, local resident here again and neighbor to Derek and Christina. I just need to support that point 100%. I request a traffic study be done on a weekend, any time of the year. That thoroughway is exactly what I was mentioning earlier with my beginning comments. There are 250 young children that converge upon Robinson Elementary, and that turn on Crest, that's where we're all walking and riding our bikes every morning. I cannot imagine the increase in very scary situations should we increase the parking structure in that space. And I plead you to consider the residents that are living in this area. It's already tenuous, and I just cannot imagine that being amplified anymore.
Great, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions for anyone here in council chamber? I'll go slow to make sure I don't go too quickly. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Tolkien with both the resident and the Metlocks property. I want to commend staff on the presentation tonight. Also, the council with the foresight of buying these properties, I think it gives you a lot of opportunities to, vision and think about the pulse of your community for the future. I mean, I do think somebody mentioned construction documents being done in 2028. I think that's very ambitious. The Metlocks project we started in 1998 and didn't complete it in 2005, 7 years. I think that's probably more realistic, and to start thinking about what the city might look like in 5 to 7 years from now and the needs you have. The timing of this is really appropriate given the parking management studies here, and I think the criteria for these probably comes out of what your needs really you think you are for parking. I think it would be very beneficial to try to encourage the redevelopment of the U.S. Bank property with the bonds site. I mean, it just isn't natural to me. Like, it's an opportunity that really you have, I think, the ability to encourage, because you own that property, and the owner and the occupant of that property would benefit from having you guys involved. And it's a real, that to me is the best parking solution because of the access to the property. I also think if you're going to think about developing, say, Mike's vision for a shade hotel expansion there, which could be great. Also, you might want to look at other assets you have downtown, see if there's a better spot for it. Just because you own other properties, before you decide to build that there, maybe there's one closer to the beach or closer to Mike's property that's maybe buffering residential. Because I think when we laid out Metlocks, one of the reasons the hotel was there is because it's intimately connected to residential because it's a more benign use, and I wouldn't put maybe that kind of a benign use where most traffic is unless you can lay it on the beach, which it will get his room rate much higher. So I just think there's a real opportunity to vision a little bit more and think about what you want this downtown to look like and solve parking at the same time. And I'm happy to help out any questions and whatnot in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Anyone else in council chambers who would like to offer comments or raise questions? Because that's the point of the study session. If not, we'll turn to Zoom. Martha, is there any public comment on Zoom?
No request on Zoom.
Okay. One last opportunity for the public to offer any further comments or questions at this time. If not, I will close public comment. And what I've proposed to my council colleagues is maybe we take about a 5-10 minute break. And then for purposes of the public, what we'll do when we come back is we will ask some follow-up questions that we may have and then give staff some direction for moving forward.
Great.
So without objection, we will stand in recess.
Pegasus, can we go live?
The city study session on the redevelopment of city-owned properties at 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard and at 1155 Morningside Drive, parking lot 3. I'd like to begin by trying to get answers for questions that were asked during public comment. And maybe I'll start turning over to the city manager, who is taking some notes.
Sure. There was a question about what percentage of the property has to be a park, so I wanted to address that first. It's not that a percentage of it has to be a park. It's that if the city chooses to utilize either one of these properties for either a private use or a mixed public and private use, we have to complete the Surplus Lands Act process and make it first available to another entity, LA County, for example, for purchase to utilize as a parks facility. If they turn that down, then we can submit the paperwork to the state HCD, get clearance from them, and then move forward with whatever project we choose. So it's not necessarily that a percentage of it has to be a park. It's just that we have to go through a process in advance of moving forward. The second question was toward the end, and it was about the parking study analyzed downtown, and that demand analysis that City Traffic Engineer Zan Vliet was mentioning was an analysis of downtown.
Great. There was also a question about the scope of the downtown parking needs that were referenced earlier?
That was the one I just mentioned, yes.
So repeat that one more time, because I was focusing.
It was downtown, not citywide.
Very good. There was a question on what we can afford. Obviously, we talked about that at the outset. You indicated that would be based on what usages we ultimately are exploring, but how much you address a member of the public's question as to how do we even look at that at this phase?
We would, so as we go through the process and identify particular uses for the sites, we would look at what the revenue generation potential is. We would consider that in accordance with our budget and our assessment of our current financial needs and our ability to bond future projects based on that combined outcome. And that's how we would determine what financial means we have to move forward with certain projects.
Very good. Council members, were there other questions that you heard that had not been asked that we should ask its staff to address public comment at this phase? Okay, thank you. If no further questions for staff, let me turn to Councilmember Howard.
All right. Well, as a few public said, wow, what a great presentation. I appreciate the fact that, we're all just asking a lot of questions. I'm trying to will remain open and curious. But I wanted to ask my colleagues, I know on slide 22, it's sort of the first part of options and discussion and direction items. And there's a couple on there that I wonder if I can get some consensus that we could take off. I don't necessarily want to come to any, very much else. But, I just want to point out that, and no bad ideas, but we have a library just, not a couple blocks away. So the library annex in that spot, I'm wondering if there's consensus if we could take that off. And maybe we do this at the end. But also, I just want to go on the record as saying I absolutely cannot see us utilizing any kind of automated technology given our coastal environment. And while I appreciate we should be forward-thinking and yada, 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 I just, that's a technical term. I just don't see that. I understand that it allows us to expand capacity, but I just want to throw that out there first, and we can respond later. I have a couple more comments, if I may. I wanted to ask staff, are we recording these ideas that the public bring down to us? Okay, good, because the one person said maybe on a third floor we could have a public park, and I hadn't heard that before, so good. That's all being recorded. Yay. How? And I think, Mr. Mayor, you brought up Vaughn's. I don't know if we have to give direction to staff, but we really, if that's a possibility, that will change, 400 MBB or whatever we're calling it. And so before the year and a half is up and we're making decisions, we should know if that's in play. And I do think, in my mind, before I came to this meeting, much like Mr. Zislis said, it was hard for me to think of these together. And although I do understand that we have to think of the downtown holistically, right? So that's why kind of we're bringing them up together. But I would like to think of us, or ask us to think about it in terms of phasing, right? In terms of, and it seems like Lot 3, we could, because that's not dependent on Vaughn's, that's not, so just again, that's not direction, because we're going to hear over the next many months, many more ideas, but perhaps we could all think about that and staff think about that, so Vaughn's. And then, as I mentioned in my comments before, I would like to ask my colleagues if we could give staff direction on how we could accommodate interim ideas for 400 MBB. So that would be something I would want to put in there. And I'm not going to really, I love all the questions. I think Stefan and another person brought up, think about your criteria for how you're making your decisions, which I think is so a smart thing. To that, I will simply say, I heard the term unmet demand a couple times, I believe, from Mr. Zenfleet in terms of parking. And I think that is a very polite way of saying, why can't I park downtown? So that's a public benefit. It's also revenue generating. And any of the uses that we end up with, I think, have to include parking on both sides at some capacity. So those are my opening comments, but I do want to encourage us, I don't know if there is consensus, Mr. Mayor, for those two things, to remove them.
So if I could, before I call Councilmember Tornay, who I see would like to
Thank
speak, I
you.
wanted to go, can I
Oh,
make
I'm so
one
sorry.
framing question for the city manager, if I could? Madam City Manager? I had wanted to confirm what you're looking for from council tonight, so we can maybe make sure that our comments, in addition to those of Councilmember Haworth, which are bang on in terms of addressing the questions that were being asked tonight. At the outset, it was referenced that we need to see if there's anything on this list that's now displayed on slide 22 that we can not pursue, so staff can narrow the scope of what it's doing. Second, we have been asked to explore potential code amendments, whether or not council wished to consider potential code amendments or direct staff to explore that. And then finally, was there any further direction on public engagement going forward? Are those the three main areas where you asked us to speak?
That is correct. I would just specify that on the second point, it could be for both or one of the two sites.
Okay. Thank you. You're talking about code amendments could apply to
Correct.
one or both of the sites. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Tornay.
Thank you. I like the idea of going through and eliminating, the things that we think we don't want. And I've talked to a few people, just residents, about just the library annex idea, and I just wanted to have a discussion about that. Because one of the things that were brought to my attention was using potentially the public library fund that we have to pay for some part of the development. And I know that I have 3 kids who've used the various rooms at the library, and it's usually always booked. They can't, especially
Great
during
point.
study sessions. So I can be convinced to remove it if the funding isn't there or if the need isn't there, but based on the population that I've talked to, I think there's been some discussions about that. So I'd like to maybe continue that conversation.
Yeah, you know what, that's great information, and that's fine by me.
And then the social club thing is something that I think would be easy to eliminate because it just benefits the people who belong to it. So I have concerns that something is going to be privatized where then only a few people can use it, or, so I have some concerns with that and what that says about our community. Oh, that even though this is formerly a public space, now it's just exclusive to people who can afford to pay for that. So I have some issues with the messaging there. And the visitor center, I don't know if that would be a revenue generating thing, so I'd be okay to eliminate that. But those are my two
What
items.
about the automated parking?
Oh, yeah. I think that I have issues with the automatic. I have concerns with the
I'm gunning
automated
for that, yeah.
parking, so that would be something that I would be down to eliminate as well. Thank you.
Mayor Tim Franklin.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, everybody, for your contributions tonight, and also back to the May meeting as well. That was fairly well attended and had great ideas that are here. So my one question would be, what would we need to add to this based upon the meeting tonight? Is there any other category that we need to give, direction on? That's one question I have.
Is that an open question? Yeah.
Well, I mean, just part of our discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, do we need to come up with an agreement of what was discussed tonight and go through I think that will work, that won't, this will work,
I think
that won't?
with what you're saying, thank you. With piggyback on what Mayor Pro Tem just said, I would like, instead of a visitor center, for us to consider a shuttle hub that's on the out, maybe at where, I think what John Token brought up is really something we should consider. What are uses around town going to look like in 7 years with automation of cars? Will we need as many parking spaces? Or should we really incorporate shuttle services that will have people park off-site and then shuttle in? So I think where I can see where 400 MBB being one of the uses would be a place that people can be dropped off if we incorporate a shuttle system.
If I may, Mayor Pro Tem, I promise I'll give you your time right back, but I wanted to go through the city manager and just confirm, you're looking for council to remove items,
Correct.
which doesn't mean that we're not going to add
That's correct.
others, but you're looking at this point with the list that you have to remove items, correct? So
Correct.
this is not the last chance to
That's
add
correct.
some of these ideas, is that right?
And we have recorded all of the items that were brought up tonight, most of which fit into these categories, the general categories. Like the third floor park would fit into open space park, for example. We heard about the social club, we heard about the information center, which is similar to a visitor center. One thing we would add based on the commentary is the teen programming space. So something similar to a youth center or some city public use that could be multi-purpose, in fact.
Yeah, because up on there, I'm sorry if I could, it doesn't really have like the art center, a teen center, it's like a public, so that would be,
So we would add multi-purpose center for
use,
teen or art.
Okay, I'd like to give the time back to
Okay,
Mayor Pro
great,
Tem
thank you.
Franklin.
reclaim your time.
Okay, so, we heard that this could potentially take 5 to 7 years. The way technology is advancing at such a rapid rate, I've just figured out Apple Pay on my phone, okay? So imagine what it's going to look like. You'll probably embed a chip in your thumbnail and, you can just buy things with that and the like. Transportation, we're just really in the beginning stages of figuring out these e-bikes. You've all heard me say from up here, first of all, really focusing on the safety, but I also thought it could be a great microtransit use. But it saddens me that the spots for 20 e-bikes that we already put up at 400 MPB are hardly used, because part of the challenge with e-bikes is people want them, they want to be able to see them. They want to be able, if they're having, at a restaurant, they can go out there and they can see that everything's okay, to make sure, it hasn't been stolen, for example, or things like that. So we still need a lot to figure that out. But I think there's a good future for them. Safely operated, ample parking, don't have to worry too much about charging them because it could be charged up at the people's home. But I think it's a great way for families and the kids and everybody to get around. We've got to consider ride sharing, like we talked about. Who's been seeing Waymos around town? I mean, they're going to be a big deal if they can figure out how to safely discharge people in a very crowded downtown. I'm going to be curious to see. I don't know if I'm going to be one of the first ones to try them out, but I guess we can try that.
Competition now?
The shuttles we've always talked about. There might be a place for that somewhere. And then food delivery people. I mean, I've talked to the restaurants where they have a lot of food delivery people. We actually had an issue with some of the food delivery people parking, overtaking a street, not putting money in the meter, not being the best of neighbors, in there. And we had, enhanced enforcement. But we got to do something. It's the livelihood of a lot of these restaurants. I was in there talking to one of the restaurants, sandwich shop, that kind of thing. 60% of their orders are delivery. So that means someone has to come, park their car somewhere, and pick up that food and deliver it. So that's going to be an issue that maybe this could help mitigate, is to have them centralized. So just a lot of lot more questions we need to get through. I'd like to see what we was already discussed here as far as taking off. I pretty much agree with that. To definitely delve into the height issues. Really want to see if we can add that extra, go to 30 feet, get a third level, and also, what was the term used where you went over the street?
Cantilever?
Yeah. So to just kind of tighten up those parameters and see where that may lead us. The library annex. I'm not sure people come down, well, they do come downtown to use the library, but they use the actual library. That has a lot of spaces in there, a lot of, places, we hold collections of work. It's used in a very vibrant manner. There's meeting rooms. A lot of people are using it. So it's sort of like a mini community center. And I don't know if we need, anything else, besides that. I'd like to really delve into the numbers as far as doing to 400 MBB, what we did with Lot 3. Make it temporary parking. See what we can do. We may have to reconfigure Morningside. We may have to give up some parking spaces to give more access to turning into that building and the like. But that would be well worth it if we can get those additional parking spaces. We heard the needs of the business community, that we're underparked. And that is almost a tripling effect of the parking meter money. Sorry to say it, citations. I've had to pay some. And also, too, why are they there? They're there to go to a restaurant, sales tax. They're there to go to a store, retail, buy, sales tax. We're competing with those big Amazon trucks driving around town that pay zero. We get zero. Supposedly, there's some number. I haven't been able to figure out who in Sacramento gets it. But when you pay sales tax on a delivery, it doesn't come to Manhattan Beach like it does with a store. So shop local. We want to encourage that, and people need places to shop. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Troy.
Thank you. On the list, Councilmember Howarth brought up, and we're talking about, I would 100% support automated parking be removed. There's absolutely no need for that. It's not something utilized more than by a handful of cities. As far as the rest, I think I would leave them alone. I do, because the community is changing, and, we need to have some amenities that are up to date. And I think potentially like something like a social club. And I was there at the May meeting, and that was on the top. I don't have the heat map for the numbers. That was up there from the people that chose to come to that meeting. So I would leave social club there. And maybe for it to be residential, you know, you could maybe charge a discount for if you're a resident or whatever it might be. I don't know that much about social clubs, but I think our community is changing, whereas it might be something to look forward to, especially if we're talking about a 5-year build. The again, the other part is, you know, I'm looking at the numbers. Again, I'm going with my strengths. I'm looking at Lot 3, since we're talking about that. You know, I see a potential of, you know, I know it's $100 per underground parking.
100,000.
100,000, thank you. And 100,000, let's say it's 60 spaces, I'm rounding, that's $6 million times 2 if you go 2 level, tie it to Metlocks, expand it to 12th Street and Morningside. That's going to give you your $600,000. In addition to that, if you're able to build, you know, a smaller kind of boutique hotel there, you would benefit, you know, again, former position as finance director, we really had a tough time identifying new revenue sources. And this would help the city. I think one of the, I think it was Mr. Zislis that mentioned, you know, residents voted for MMB. They also voted for the storm drain to help the city kind of meet our goals. And I think this is one of those opportunities, again, my opinion only, that you can build something that could generate revenue for the future, you know, future of the town. And I think I heard Maureen McBride say, you know, build something, you know, for residents, businesses, and the public. Find that, you know, find what helps the ecosystem, right? The ecosystem of the downtown, the businesses.
To have a violent, oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. You're never going to live that down, Maureen. And
Maybe a fight club instead of social club.
wow, where's this going? Are we still live? But
Wow.
my thoughts again are my thoughts, and we're just sharing it tonight. And I appreciate all the input we got from. And it is, you know, it's tucked away, and being able to utilize the entrance on Morningside to the lot, it wouldn't really hinder, you know, the ingress and egress of that activity. And you have another entry on Valley, and you can, if you connect the lots, then you have a great opportunity. Your debt service on $12 million, probably around $500,000 a year. You're making that in parking site, parking only. So it's getting paid for. So we really need to look at the numbers. But again, these are just my points. I like what I heard about, you know, 400, some of the things I think Mayor Howard talked about, and interim ideas for interim items. You know, I'm open to that. I'm open to maybe leaving it, or I'm opening to making it just single level parking and waiting to see what happens with bonds. But I think it'd be really difficult to have concurrent projects happening at the same time. But I do like what we did with Lot 3. I wish we could just pick it up and put it over there and say, oh, we don't have to spend $1 million to put a new surface lot there, if that's what we all decide. The other thing I have concern, my last point for now, is just the amount of public engagement. And I, too, 100% want to hear from the public. You know, we started this, you know, we purchased it in April, we jumped on it in May. You know, now we're 90 days later, and then looking at the chart, I saw that we would be done with public engagement in August. That's a year and 3 years of public engagement. I think if this is one of those things, you know, council's here, we're the policymakers, we got voted in, we take in the input, put a sunset on public outreach to some degree. Maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's 9 months, but to have it keep going for 15 months, we need to shave off, you know, that timeline. But those are my comments for now.
Before I make my comments, Councilmember Howard, did you have a follow-up?
I did.
Please.
I
Go
do.
ahead.
I didn't opine on the development regulations. I would be receptive to increasing the height from 26 feet to 30 feet. So I wanted to weigh in on that. And I think it was Councilmember Sherlin said maybe leaving most of everything on here, because I do appreciate what Councilmember Tarnay said about, her kids, they need more meeting space rooms, which may not be, may not be what Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Franklin, knows, but I think the point is that we want to leave the option open, because as we're also doing this, we're also looking at our library usage study, right? And then if there is a potential to use any financing to help off, set whatever we're doing there, we want to leave that on the table. So I'd be willing to just, we don't have to make these decisions today, final. And I do want to add a visitor center, I think, would benefit downtown greatly. So I want to keep that as an important part. So just to, basically, we're keeping everything on there, but which we should, because there's.
Except for automated parking.
I think, I've had some comments that, hey, I've seen this work really well in other places, and that might be, but we can't get our escalators to work. And so there's a similar kind of track claw stuff that happens there. So, Mr. Mayor, my other comments, number 2, library, and the public engagement piece. Also, I'm agnostic as to whether we do an interim surface level lot versus pop-up space. Maybe we do pop-up space till we move to an interim, So I think that's great to have that. But my last comment would be with public engagement, I imagine that it will get a little bit refined as we keep getting more and more. Like, I'd hope it'd be iterative, but I wouldn't be opposed to shortening the period either, just so then we could deliberate, because it's well-known fact that councils are very quick at making decisions. So, so yeah, all those are good. Mr. Mayor, I am done. Go for it.
To pick up on what the growing consensus is, I want to thank the public for coming down, spending some of your time and dedicating yourself to this process, particularly when we had an open-ended agenda where we welcome comment, we welcome questions, we welcome ideas. So consistent with what has already been said, I'm receptive to a number of the ideas that were suggested tonight, including interim uses, an arts sort of component of some kind, a visitor center, a transit piece, an element to this where we can accommodate visitors who may not be coming with a car. All that is good. But let's help this process move forward. I will indicate in a moment my no's, which I think will help staff to be able to allocate their time better, along with what direction we would have for staff, because to the extent that this is an aggressive timetable, we need to get staff going and give some authority to them to begin to go down roads where we know they're going to need some further help. So I am with the council majority in not wanting to see an automated parking lot. There's no question that we could potentially accommodate more cars, but imagine what happens when inevitably there would be maintenance issues. It could be a real challenge. I am very much in favor of libraries, of course, because of my outside role on the County Library Commission and on the our council library subcommittee. But I think at that location for a library annex, I don't think it's the best, particularly because, as was mentioned by the Mayor Pro Tem, we're so close to the actual library. If anything, it's not on the agenda. I would love to see some form of capacity for supplemental annex library on the east side of Manhattan Beach, where there used to be a library. That's something for us to talk about on a later day. But certainly not the automated parking, not the annex. Maybe we pull up the slide 22. It's already up again. Let me go down this list. For mixed use development, we already had a preliminary presentation by our outside consultant in December to the prior council on potential projections of costs. To take advantage of our meeting tonight and have the ability to give direction to staff, would staff like any further direction to further refine some of those numbers based on different models of what a scale might be for a mixed-use development at 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard as well as Lot 3?
We wouldn't be able to do that unless we knew what the mix of uses was specifically.
So speaking for myself, I would like to explore a potential retail component, certainly at the surface level, so that it wouldn't just be a parking lot, but it would add to what is our small town feel. So I would be interested to see what that might look like, particularly where on the 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard site, which is challenging because, as our traffic engineer indicated, because it's not a rectangle. What might that look like? Is that something we should and can consider? How might that be designed, and what are the potential costs and revenue generation from that? For a hotel, there's a lot of open-ended questions here, particularly given the need to meet a certain parking criteria, given that we're already underparked. How could we park a hotel for purposes of its own requirements, as well as allow sufficient public parking spaces? We touched on this at the December meeting before 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard was purchased. I'm curious, what might that look like going forward? I'm speaking for myself. Obviously, I will open this up to council comments besides my own comments here. But I think we need to direct staff tonight to begin to get different resources so the community can understand what this might look like, as well as council. I don't want to take multifamily residential off the table. I'm not certain about a social club. I think that's a use, which would depend upon whether or not we have a retail component, which is be part of the analysis. I would be receptive to looking at a higher height of 30 feet at the location of 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard, as well as the lot. We do not have a view ordinance in Manhattan Beach, but having been involved with other construction downtown with regard to the library and other usages that in my time involved with the city, I know that the residents to the east of Valley and Ardmore are going to be very concerned with what might be proposed there. I think we need to be giving direction to staff tonight to explore what that might look like, figuratively and literally, and what that will allow the city to do in terms, we heard reference to greater parking spaces. What can we do? There's been a concern about phasing. Obviously, we need to determine what would be built before we can talk about phasing, but I'd be in favor of it. Vons, I think there should be staff outreach to the ownership of Vons, as was discussed. How do we maximize the parking spaces in each of these two lots? I'd like to see diagrams again that were presented in December. Are there any updates? How many cars could we park at a base kind of level? If we cannot agree on anything else, and we were just to do parking at a minimum of lot 3, again, what would that look like? And we want to be sensitive to the residents that live down there, but what are some different configurations for 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard for parking with sensitivity towards the residents that live near there? Interim usage. I'd welcome staff being directed and come back with some different ideas for how we could explore interim uses without obstructing the staff capacity to be able to look at the long-term uses, because we only have so many staff members. What would be involved in looking at interim uses? What's the scope of what we should be considering? And then finally, with public engagement, I do see a need for more public engagement. This is a long time period, as has been referenced, but on the other hand, because we didn't receive public engagement on the front end, I feel we have a duty to really reach out. There was a reference to focus groups to supplement some of the planned outreach and engagement. Obviously, that'll need to be defined because we really want the public to feel that they can participate and they've been heard. So let me stop there and turn over to my council colleagues. Councilmember Charnay.
All right, thank you, Mayor. So just, in the objective of just whittling down our to-do list and give staff further direction, I think I'm on board on the height, with the code amendment to increase the height to 30 feet. I think that makes sense, and it's a good time to do that. As far as the interim use for MBB, as I recall, I don't think we can lease any of those spaces out, right?
If I may just take a minute to speak about the interim uses before we go too far into the direction, and I did ask Finance Director Brett Howard to come down as well. So two things I wanted to point out is that depending on what use goes in there, there will be a number of upgrades required. Plans would have to be submitted, and we would have to get a permit. We'd have to take into consideration what type of occupancy that is and what type of upgrades that would require. We did perform an assessment on the fire side and the building code side when we purchased the property in anticipation of this question, and there are quite a few deficiencies that would have to be addressed from both fire code and building code. So it would be at an expense. What that expense is, we don't have that number now, but we would have to consider the occupancy, prepare plans, get permits, and then do the upgrades necessary to be able to pass the inspections. And then the second consideration is the type of use could create some challenges for us based on the type of financing that we have secured, whether that's private or public. And with that, I will turn it over to Finance Director Brett Hauer.
Yes, thank you. So we did issue tax-exempt certificates of participation. So any interim use that we might consider would have to be a public use. We would not be able to privatize any of the space.
Okay, thank you.
You may continue.
Thank you for that. And I do support approaching Vaughn's to see what their plans are. I think it makes sense at this point to have that piece of property be included in the conversation. And there was, the library annex. As much as I think, there may be a need for it, hearing what I am from my colleagues, I'd be willing, since I think it helps to remove some of the items that I would be open to removing that. So,
Great.
I think that's it.
Great. And again, we'll circle back to staff for comments unless you wanted to say something at this moment, City Manager.
I was going to say we can remove the library annex and replace it with community center / teen center / art center.
Love that.
Okay. Councilmember Shuey.
Thank you. Is the finance director still?
Yes.
There? Oh, there you are. Hi. So would you say that if we were to put a surface level parking lot at 400 MBB, that would suffice with the tax exempt bonds? Is that a true statement?
Oh, yes, as long as it's public
just wanted
parking open to the public.
Right, and then we can still put parking meters and generate revenue from that, correct?
Yes, as long
Okay.
as it's open to the public and we couldn't, only designate certain people to park there.
Perfect, thank you.
And I'll just add that we're indirectly generating revenue right now because the individuals with merchant parking permits are parking there, and that opens up other meter spaces for non-permit
Yeah.
holders.
No, that's a good idea. So thank you, that answers my questions.
Excuse me, Mayor Pro Tem Franklin, you're next. I'd like to just ask a question related to that if I could.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
And that is, to the extent council now appreciates the challenges with utilizing the existing structure, the existing improvement at 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard, again, to take advantage of our meeting here tonight, would it be helpful to give direction on exploring what the cost would be to demolish the existing structure and to build a surface lot, just as an interim?
I believe we got rough estimates for that prior to the budget process. And we set aside about $200,000 for the demolition of the U.S. Bank site. And we could anticipate that a replacement lot would be higher than the cost of what it cost at Lot 3 because it is a larger site.
But David hasn't negotiated yet.
Yeah, he negotiated. You still got those guys?
What I'm trying to do, again, is identify issues which we know we're going to face, and more particularly, making sure that staff has the resources it needs, given this aggressive time frame, because tonight we have the opportunity to give staff direction or authorize, perhaps going through whatever the process is, to bring in outside help to supplement city staff.
We would have to
Are
do
there
that.
any resources that you can imagine or can anticipate that might be worth offering or allowing staff, subject to council approval, to engage?
Depending on what the direction is, we either have on-call consultants. The request may fall into the scope of contracts that we already have in place. If it doesn't, then we would have to go seek new consultants, and that all depends on the direction.
May I follow up on that, Mayor Pro Tem? I know you're next, but it was exactly about the interim use, demolition. Do we know about how many spots we would realize if we demolish the building? Do we have that?
40 spots. And
Four-
41.
Oh,
41
41.
spaces, and right now we have 26 spaces that are utilizing parking permits.
So that's 41 on top of the 26?
No, that's including the 26.
So to demo the building, we'd only realize about 15.
That's correct.
Okay, so keep that in mind for the, how much it costs to demo it, to get 15
Well,
spots.
demo and build.
Demo
the
and
new-
build, yes, yeah, okay.
Which
thank
is
you.
over $1
That's
million.
it.
Mayor Pro Tem Franklin.
Okay. So in hearing everybody go through what they're voting or recommending is, I'm not sure if I had made it clear, but I would like to shorten the time frame. Time is of the essence, time is money, all that is true. I don't want to see a social club, in the way that it's defined now. I don't know if that's going to be an exclusive membership. I don't know if it's going to be selling alcohol. I don't know, what's going on, but, I'm sitting here and we talked to, we heard from many residents, what did they find? Why did they move to Manhattan Beach? They moved to Manhattan Beach, I know, many decades ago, as did I, 42 years ago. And it's a beach city. It's a low-key beach city. It's not throbbing nightlife and things like that. It's, got very, tasteful, retail. It's a place where people want to come, have dinner, spend their money. I don't want to add to, how do I want to say that? I don't want to produce, I don't think it's our place to produce competition for our, businesses that have taken root here and have invested and made the city the way it is. So I don't see it really being, going back to the,
Social club.
the social club, the visitor center. Most people are, when they're coming into town, the biggest thing they're looking for is a parking spot, so they can get out of their car and walk around and discover. I think it's great. You walk around town, you sit in a restaurant, you hear people come by and say, hey, where's a great place to eat? Where can we find this? Where do we find that? A visitor center, I just don't see that as being a plus, a positive that's going to attract people and make their experience. Talk to anybody that lives here. Do we love talking about our town? Absolutely, we do. So I don't think a visitor center is needed.
What about a chair for you?
I'll-
You could be there,
I'll
you could
sit
be there.
there
You have a desk?
Put on the dunce cap.
Talk to me.
And, we talked, I already expressed about the library annex, mixed-use development. I just don't think that there's going to be enough room to make any sort of impact on, housing shortage or things like that. And be a return to the, and create that return to the city to pay for the bonds. So I don't really, see that working. I just want to go back to the retail. We got the hometown fair. That gives the opportunity for people to come and, have a spot on Manhattan Beach, to sell their wares. Okay, I don't think that has to be, people look forward to it. The vendors have told me this is one of their best spots to go, and they have other places, other cities that they do it at. I just don't think we got to set something up like that that's there all the time. We see the farmer's market. It does a good job. I'm amazed at how many people are walking through town with their bags and everything. That's a great value to the city and draws a lot of people, and, gives farmers work to do, gives them a place to sell. I assume we produce fees by renting them the spots, but, that's a benefit. I don't think we need to do anything else like that. Okay. Is there anything else you need? My take on clarification?
I think it would help if we could take a vote on some of these things so that we have the council consensus on the topics that you all raised.
So here's what I want to do. I hear Councilmember Shuin, you want to go first?
Yeah, I would like to speak, yes. Thank you.
So I'd
Thank
like
you,
to
Mayor.
call on Councilmember Shuin, and then we'll identify what those issues are.
Thank you. And then, just for this item, I think I spoke on this a minute ago, but now I've heard my colleagues speak as well. I just wanted to put in there, as much as I appreciate, the 20, 30, 40, 50-year residents of this town, they are the fiber of this community. They're the foundation of this community. But I have kids in elementary school, and a lot of the parents that are there have not been here all that long. And they're newer families, they're, investing in the community. They're looking for places like amenities and social clubs. And like I said, we don't know enough about social club to cross it out. We've made assumptions. So I would like to leave it on there so we can explore it. Makes, no sense just to cross it out because there's, connotation to it, and maybe it could be made residential friendly. I don't know. We don't know, but that's all my only 2 cents on that. I'm fine for the 36 to 40 increase.
26 to 30.
26 to 30.
But let's go to 40. No, I'm kidding.
No violence.
You
no
might
violence.
get some reaction from the community, council member.
So, yeah, I'm fine for the raise. With that question, maybe it's a Larry question or Michael or Talene. This up to, I'm looking at slide 14, up to 35-room hotel. The necessity for that would be 39 spaces for a 35-room hotel. Anything less than that would be less required. And my question would be, is there any way to accommodate the needs of whatever the number of rooms are above on surface level, and then put the parking, the public parking underground, since if we're going to increase the height? I guess that's a question I would like to ask, maybe Larry, whoever wants to answer it, but I'd like to get a question. Can we put surface level parking on lot 3 to accommodate if there was a boutique hotel up to 35 rooms? Or Tari? No, surface level to accommodate the needs of the hotel, and then go 2 levels underground, which would pay for itself, like do 60 and 60 underground.
So it would be surface level parking in the hotel above that?
I don't know, I'm not a builder, I'm just saying, is there opportunity if you, I don't know, I guess it's a question. Yeah, it would be surface level and then a hotel above that. Since it's not 30, it might not be 35 rooms.
Did you want to answer, or you're okay for me to answer?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to steal the spotlight. So it would limit the number of rooms if you put parking on that first level, just because we're limited by the height. So a 30-foot height limit is still a difficult height limit when you're talking about commercial construction, because the ceiling heights are typically taller. And so if you were to do the first level of parking and then hotel rooms above that, yes, that can be done, and you can build subterranean parking underneath. It just limits the number of rooms you can have above that first level.
Right, and that's why I said up to 35, because Cosmont said up 35. I was just saying if it was between 25 and 35, if you can utilize that surface level and then build above it to accommodate.
You can do that. It just takes away from the height total, because that first level of parking would have to be a certain height, and then you need a certain height for the commercial structure above
Gotcha.
that.
But it can be done, I guess, like you said. Okay.
And then possibly the elevator overrun may be an issue with the height above the third story. Yeah.
The traffic engineer, you have a comment to make, please.
Thank you. I wanted to give a little bit more information with regard to potentially a hotel on levels 2 and 3 above, and having parking on the surface level and then 2 levels underneath. The first level, or the surface level, would be mostly used up by ramp and the entrance to the hotel. So you would really not get much parking out of the surface level parking.
Sorry to interrupt, but you would connect to Metlocks and your ramps
You
would...
can't connect to Metlocks with the first level underground. You have to go to the second level in order
Good to know.
to do that.
Glad you...
And then you have an elevator shaft that would then exceed 30 feet if you had 2 levels of hotel above parking. So you don't get much use out of the first level of parking. But that's,
You can't access the first level of parking from any of the Morningside or Valley entrances?
no, so the first level below ground has to be accessed from Morningside or 12th Street.
Got you, thank you.
Could I have a quick question? So regardless of what Mr. Zislis said about the actual smaller number of parking spaces that are actually used, are we still going to have to zone it? Are we still going to have to require that by ordinance to have them fully parked, whatever potential hotel would be there?
If I understand your question correctly, to reduce the amount of parking for a hotel, you could apply for a variance to do that, use permit variance, and they could try to justify a lower level of parking that's less than the city's parking code.
Right.
That can certainly be done,
So,
supported by a parking study.
so is it typically one space per room? Is it
The city's parking code is one per unit or
Yeah.
hotel unit, plus a visitor space, or a loading space.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
I do have
Go ahead.
one last item. Again, I appreciate my colleagues, talking about the timeline and the need for subcommittees and ad hoc committees and all the committees to look at this for a period of over potentially a year. With respect to that, I think we have an opportunity to learn from some of the, I won't say mistakes, but some of the projects we have in the past that we've gotten caught up in a lot of somewhat bureaucracy to move projects along because they've been just vetted almost too much. And I am for the community. I mean, one thing that comes to mind directly is the outdoor dining. It's been 5 years, and there's other projects, but, we had a lot of committees for that, and, here, we're still talking about it. But I think with, doing a 1-year timeline for public outreach, 6 to 1 year for a proposal, 6 to 1 year for drawings, and another 6 months to a year for revisions, and permitting is probably 1 year. I mean, we're probably at 4 years. So I would like, some help to try to shave some of this timeline off so we can get this thing moving, so it's not a half-decade project. Thank you.
Councilmember Hobart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a comment, a proposal for a series of motions. But also, I really value this dialogue that we're having tonight, like this workshop format, and, I'm not trying to rush anything, so if people have additional comments, it's fine. So I propose a series of motions regarding height, and then another motion with the list of projects, another motion with community engagement, et cetera. And I want to make a comment directly to Councilmember Shirley, and I appreciate your frustration that we want to get something done for the community, for everybody. Even before you said that, I was going to say, I've been doing this, how long have we been?
A while.
A while. I think this is one of the best processes and reports and presentations I've ever seen. I think our staff has been working for months on this, and just the fact that you were able to answer some questions about, well, with the financing we did, we can't do, commercial in, any interim. You had answers for our questions. And I think that laying it all out like this is actually going to save us time. It's different than outdoor dining, because outdoor dining was sort of driven, and I'll tell you what, but I really appreciate, because there is frustration, that people participate in this. This is a project driven by what we know is allowable, what is doable, what we know that we have needs. This is not, wish we could have this, and then what it would be. You know what I don't think I'm articulating it well, but I see this as a different, and I see this as their public engagement proposal. Although I'm willing, I'm not wed to it. I just see value in getting all this worked out in this process and at the time. Because if you look at spring 2026, that's one-day workshop with a design charrette. So we're already talking about, designs that then lead us into construction documents, et cetera. Anyway, that's my thought on that, but I don't need to. Okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to make a motion. Not with everything, just one motion right now. You're going to like it.
Well, the only thing I was going to suggest is, should staff present each of the bullet points that we vote on?
Now, let me give a stab at it, because I think, and then, let me take a stab.
So what I
Because we've
propose
had
to
it-
do,
we
because
have the
Councilmember Haworth would like to make a motion, in fact, I see that she already has made a motion, so for Robert's rules, I'll give her an opportunity to
Okay.
make her motion, and
And then
then
we
what I
could
would
go.
do is turn to staff for basically what I'll call cleanup, to make sure that there isn't any further direction that staff is seeking, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any
So,
objection?
'cause- I
Seeing
mean,
none, go forward with your
I
first
think you're
motion.
going to like this one, Councilmember, or Mayor Pro Tem. So my motion would be I would like to make a motion that staff go into the development regulations and increase the height from 26 feet to 30 feet to match Metlocks.
Can I make a friendly amendment on that?
Oh, good Lord.
I-
I thought you'd love it.
No, I want staff to explore
Okay.
what that would look like.
That's-
And what the
no, that's what I meant.
ramifications for that
Okay.
might be, and what area we're talking about. So with that motion,
Yes.
is that what you would like to speak to?
Yes, exploration is, I think, a more appropriate word, because we do have to engage in discussions with the Coastal Commission. It is a legislative action at the end of the day, and even if council were to take action on that, we then have to go through the Coastal Commission process to ensure that it would be
That
supported by the
satisfies the
Coastal
intent
Commission.
of the motion.
Terrific.
Yeah, for
I see
sure.
that has been seconded by Councilmember Tarnay. Any comment before we call for the vote? Says a vote.
The height limit, right?
The
Yeah.
height limit, just to
That's
explore it.
To explore it, if it's possible. Okay.
Oh, come on.
All right, there you go. Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you for that. And now you want me to wait and let staff?
You're welcome to make another motion unless you want to defer to staff. I see you've made another motion, and that would be?
To remove automated parking as an option.
Second that? Is there any comment that any member has? I'm seconding that. Seeing none, we'll call for a vote on that.
My job is done.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Any objection to my just simply asking the city manager to summarize the other open issues where staff would like direction from council? City manager.
Based on that motion, we would leave all other items on the list, including library annex, or does the council want to make a subsequent motion?
So before we move to the library annex, I wanted to clarify. I'm a little bit confused as to what is a use potentially versus that requires staff time at this point when we want to focus staff on certain priorities. In other words, do we need to Do you need to provide you direction at this point on a visitor center, for example, on a social club, when in fact I would think that would be secondary to the primary focus is what we're talking about?
The council could choose to leave those on the list, but then if you want to provide more specific direction about some of the other uses, you could also do that. You mentioned earlier about the mixed use, about seeking some more information on what it would look like if we had mixed uses, public, retail and parking on either one of those sites. So if the council wanted to give us specific direction about that, this would be the time.
Okay, I see Councilmember Haworth has made a motion, and that motion is?
Well, I was going to, So I wasn't prepared to, I'm going to withdraw the motion and press that button. I wasn't prepared to give like specific design ideas, you know, like, but because I do want to consider whether it's mixed, I do want to consider mixed use, first floor and parking, absolutely. Hotel, all that to me should stay on. Social club, yes, I appreciate what Councilmember Sherillian said. So I would say if I were to make a motion saying, yeah, keep all this on the list, except for library annex, would that be helpful enough? Okay. And I'm going to say that just because of all the discussion we've had.
One clarification to that would be remove library annex, replace with community center, arts center,
Yes,
community center.
yes. Did you hear that?
There's a
But
second.
that doesn't give us the opportunity to go like one by one. You're doing sort of a wholesale.
Because I'll tell you why. I don't think we should do much more elimination now. I think that we're still in the gathering phase. I'm not for I'm not for taking off mixed-use development. I'm not for taking off all those things yet.
Well, remember, this was based on the May meeting, okay? And we're talking about, we're going to do all this other outreach and meetings and discussions. Are we going to be adding to the list then as we go forward as a result of those meetings? So,
Potentially, yes, but we would bring those ideas back to council.
So if I can clarify, what I'm hearing is that what Councilmember Haworth would do would be allowing certain uses to continue to be explored. And in a moment, I'm going to ask, do you need any other direction to engage any outside resources to fully explore those? But this is what direction we're giving tonight, subject to further engagement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you want to say something else?
Well, yeah, because I was just going to add, I didn't consider the May meeting. I don't think it was totally well attended.
it was 23.
It was 23 people? Okay. So I guess I was, at some point, we do need to, stop, to your point, and develop the ideas more, but I don't think we should preclude too much right now, or exclude too much.
Well, I totally disagree. I think we should just go through and, because that would save time. If there's enough that are voting to say don't look at it, we move on. I mean, so that we can pare this down and make it a manageable project.
Well, how about the motion for now, and then you can try to make another motion. The motion for now was take off library annex, and leave everything else on, and you can vote against that, but that's the motion for now.
But it doesn't give us like specificity.
It doesn't right now.
So, and I understand you can carry the motion, but I mean,
Well, then you could make another one.
I think people want to see, here it is now. We've had a 3-hour meeting. We've gotten input from more people, and these are the things we want to move forward. The whole idea at this point is not to expand this list, but to cut it down.
I see Councilmember Charnay would like to speak up.
I second the motion. I just wanted to clarify, Councilmember Haworth is to remove the library annex and add in place of it a
Yes.
community space.
That's right.
So I second that motion.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for that clarification.
So
And you
for
can make another
purposes
one.
of comments on a motion that's been made and seconded, I want to clarify with the city manager, if I could, which items remain are going to be time-consuming for staff to keep on to address Mayor Pro Tem.
Can we do that after? And then it'll be a second motion, and you can ask that after.
I think for purposes of comment on the motion, which will impact my vote on whether I'm going to support the motion,
Okay.
I want to get an answer to that question as to which of the items that remain on the list are potentially time-consuming to address Councilmember Sherillian's and Mayor Pro Tem Franklin's concerns. I think is it slide 22?
20.
I see.
22.
Oh, this is, not the timeline.
Yeah.
I was looking at the timeline.
I wouldn't call either one of anything on this list out as more complicated than the other, so.
That was helpful.
Well, then, let me follow up. Was your hope to pare it down more tonight? I didn't understand that that's what
I think it's helpful that you've taken off automated parking garage from that list. That already helps us focus the type of parking we would look at, because that makes a big difference in terms of design and opportunities. So That's very helpful. And then if we switch out library annex, I think that would be a good accomplishment for this evening.
But in order to make it, so you said, but then make it a community center,
That's what we said.
That's the motion,
right?
correct?
Okay,
That's the
well,
motion.
we haven't discussed a community center. We just discussed a library annex. Can we have a discussion before we vote? Like, for me, community center is Jocelyn Center.
So
If you want to meet as a community center, you just rent a room at the Jocelyn Center.
I feel like, and community center could be art, it could be, so I feel like I'm not prepared to limit this list yet. Like when you say mixed-use development, there's a whole bunch of different things that could be, but I don't think we're ready to go into that tonight. If you talk about, commercial, that could be a lot of different, I don't know. So I didn't come here tonight thinking, oh, we're going to say, this is what we're doing, or we're looking at these three things, because I think there needs to be more public input. I think the public isn't expecting that either. It's a workshop, right? So that's kind of how I'm approaching it. I'm not saying that we have to have a community center on there, or a community space. It's a community space. But I'm saying we shouldn't have a library annex, but we did hear from people that art would be important. So let's add that as an option, and we can, at the next one, we'll talk about it. That's all. I think that's the motion. We can call for the motion and then talk about it, limiting more if you'd like.
Councilmember Tarnay.
I'm open to it.
I just wanted to add, I mean, what I'm envisioning with the community space, we're talking about public spaces, we're hearing from people that we want to keep, residents in mind. So I'm looking for a space that could be used, and that's why we asked staff to continue with that exploration, because we are in the preliminary stages of figuring these things out, and I don't want to eliminate something where then as we progress and more people become involved and they want this, and now it's off the table. So I understand the frustration and you want to move things along, but I also want it to be a thoughtful process where people don't come back and say, wait a minute, they just pushed this through, they wanted this, and this is why. So for transparency and for the processes to really take residents' input into consideration, I think it's important to keep these options open. But I also do agree at some point we have to cut it off, and it can't be open-ended, and that's going to come at a later point. But I don't see this meeting being that point.
Okay. Councilmember Schroeder.
I don't have any.
Okay. Any further comments?
Yeah, well, by the same token, you can go ahead and add something. I mean, I'm just trying to make this a manageable
we can.
list.
It's a
Right now, we're
workshop.
all over the map, which is fine. Okay?
I mean,
But-
if you want to entertain a motion that you want to eliminate, I
Yeah.
think we can consider that. But
Next,
it is
yeah.
open-ended until if there's something you want to propose, I'd be happy to consider it.
Yeah, same.
All right.
So, but let's call for this motion, and then you can make a motion, and
Okay. Call for the question.
What?
you voted.
He voted.
I
It
voted.
shows that he's voted on this side. Do we need to take a verbal vote? Okay.
happened?
She can't see his.
His screen showed, there we go.
Oh, there it
Oh,
goes.
there it goes.
Oh, there it is.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay. I just want to confirm we've now voted, and again, I'll turn to the city manager. Do you see this time frame being challenged by anything we voted on thus far? Do you need further direction? Are there potentially opportunities to expedite it? That's what's been a concern expressed by 2 council members.
If the council wanted to expedite, we would have to bring up the slide with the engagement program and get specific direction on what the council would want to eliminate. But also keep in mind that in between those steps, we may need to be working with consultants to actually develop certain things to bring back to the community, particularly as it relates to the design charrette, for example.
I would rather this for now. I'd rather just a general direction to staff that we are looking to try and maintain this time frame or expedite it if possible, including but not limited to needing to come back to council for direction sooner. And perhaps that is one way to address concerns about the time frame. Correct?
That's correct. And I would just add that the more expedited the process is, the more we may need consultants to come on board, just to be able to manage staff's work on other projects as well.
Councilmember Shuroyan.
Yeah, I guess if you can bring up slide 20, sorry, Assistant City Clerk. I guess what I'd like to do is that slide 20, or I'm looking at the public engagement
24.
program.
20, he's looking at 20. It's a public engagement program, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is. I guess, just looking at this chart, the hometown fairs early in October, farmers market is every Tuesday, community partner meeting and focus groups. We're saying fall of 25, so that's the next almost 3 months. And then is there anything we can, or I guess, is that a reasonable enough time to do all these things? Or is it too short, or is it too long? And I'm not a big fan of spending money on consultants, but this is a big deal to help get this along the process and get it to the finish line. If my colleagues would entertain me to look at this, and maybe we can move the flash vote into fall of 2025. Older adults program, what do you mean by that? City council meetings, what is that? Are you coming back to city council for direction, or how many council meetings?
Yes.
And I guess I would, in addition to this, I would want to entertain some kind of activity or update report on every other council meeting or something to give us a heads up that this is moving along. Maybe that's a future agenda item, but again, I could think of several projects that have been going on for years that we don't have regular updates on. But as our city manager, is there anything that you can move around here to help move this project along?
So focus groups, which is fall 2025, that's not just one focus group. So that's our opportunity to reach out specifically to the residents, specifically to the business owners. And it helps us hear them and hear their very specific concerns. So in terms of fall 2025, I think there's a lot packed in there already, particularly because the community partner meetings and the focus groups are multiple meetings. They're not just one. And then going to winter 2026.
Do you mean 25? Winter 25?
Mm-mm.
26.
No, that's 2026.
Oh, okay,
That's
winter,
January.
January,
Yeah.
okay.
February.
So this would be the opportunity to take all of those ideas from fall 2025, present to the Planning Commission with the flash vote survey results, with the older adults programming, and then bring the Planning Commission information back to council. So it does include both City Council and Planning Commission, because that would be the next step where we'd have enough information from the public for the council and the Planning Commission to consider. And then I guess the design, what you could cut from spring 2026 is that next community workshop, because we can have the design charrette to work on those ideas with the community, and then the results would just be presented to the council. The idea there was that we would develop the design and then present to the community.
The comment is echoing on something Councilmember Haworth indicated earlier. We owe the community more of an opportunity to engage on this project, given that there was limited engagement before 400 Manhattan Beach Boulevard was purchased. So I am in favor of ensuring staff has enough time to conduct the outreach. I also want to give credit to staff because they sought to come up with a time frame at a lower cost for our community without engaging outside consultants, given all of the other workload that they already have during this period. So there was some thoughtfulness in producing this engagement program. I just simply would say, as was indicated earlier, if there are opportunities for expediting certain pieces, as Councilmember Shuroyan was just exploring, I think that would be something to bring forward to council to see what amendments could be made. Councilmember Haworth, did you want to?
Yeah, I
Please.
even pressed the button. I think I have a couple ideas that may help out a couple of my colleagues. What if we had another, what if this came back to council, not maybe in a workshop, or maybe, I don't know, like, before the winter, before the flash vote survey, maybe, we come back to council and we say, listen, this is what focus groups have been saying, this is what community partners have been saying. What do you want to pull the community on with the flash vote survey? Because that way, it actually is another checkpoint before it gets maybe unwieldy again. It may whittle down the list to Mayor Pro Tem Franklin's point, which I also have another idea with that. But so I think adding a council meeting in between, whether it's December, adding it to a council meeting so we can really focus the survey, and so then the planning committee, so then it's really getting more narrow by that point. I think might be helpful, might be a good way to also keep us on track, right? That would be one proposal. The other thing, I'd be willing to make a motion to take an additional thing off the list, even though I kind of thought it was important, but I heard a couple of my colleagues say it, so we could take off visitor center. And would that help, like, again, would that be something that would whittle it down for folks? No?
Can I make a suggestion? Again, I see this as a potential use once we envision what the primary project would be. So if it includes some retail space other than just a parking lot, that might encompass at least a portion of visitor center. Am I looking at this in the correct way, City Manager?
That is a possibility.
Okay.
So
I was also trying to respect. Yeah, I was trying to respect him. No, I tried, but don't you think? I mean, I don't think I need a motion, but don't you think that if we add another council touch point there, like in December, that could help narrow it down, which could go forward a little bit more focused.
Let me quickly turn to the City Manager, and then Councilmember Trevilian, did you want to say further? Yeah, City Manager, is it possible to add another council meeting, or did you want to keep some flexibility there?
We can add a council meeting after the fall 2025 events are concluded.
A meeting like this.
Maybe, or maybe just come to council and say, here's our update.
Depending on what the content is and what direction we'll need, we can decide if it's a special meeting or if it could be at a regular council meeting.
I think it could help keep it going. And I also want to just make the comment, no matter how many times we ask people for their input, no matter how hard we try, I guarantee you at that planning commission meeting and in our final meeting, we are going to be stormed with people saying, never got a chance to weigh in on this, so. No, I know, I'm just.
That's why we get paid the big bucks.
Councilmember Trevilian.
Yeah, and I appreciate it, and I just don't want this to be misconstrued. I'm all for public engagement. I really want the input. We all ran because we wanted to be the voice of the public, and we were entrusted with making decisions. So the fact that, Mayor, you said that we didn't give them being the public, an opportunity to engage with us for 400 MBB, I don't think that's the correct approach, because we had an opportunity where the policymakers to make a decision on a purchase of a real property that's a generational footprint in our community. That's not something we're going to go to the public and say, what should we put here? I really think that was not good, approach, but I'm all for public engagement. I just wanted to ask the city manager if we could shave anything off of here, even though if it's a month, it's 6 weeks or whatever it is. Let's keep the momentum going and keep us updated, keep council updated, whether maybe at our meetings or whatnot. We need to be updated on this, and we all need to be vigilant to keep this going. That's all I have. I do want to, one thing, the attachment to your staff report, it's that's at the very end of your binder. It's page 10. It's lot 3 it's by the Cosmont group. It's slide 10.
Cosmont?
Yeah, it talks about lot 3 utilization patterns. I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. It looks like this. And you can see, we heard earlier that the aggregate over the years, 90% occupied, but you can see the ebbs and flows. I don't know if the public can see this. I don't know if you can put it up, Assistant City Clerk, but
you know, June to August are really busy, and, you know, 12 to 2 and 6 to 7 are the times of the day that, so we just have to be careful saying the parking lots, you go out there in February or March, and you come downtown as regularly as I do, you know, can find parking. It's not always utilized. So just, let's keep this in mind as we have the psychology of parking and limited parking and not enough parking. I think parking is important. We do need more parking, but we need to understand this chart of when parking, the ebbs and flows of parking. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Madam City Manager, would any other direction be useful to staff at this time?
I believe we have the direction that we need, so we will add a city council meeting after the fall to limit the options.
Any other council member final comments? If not, I believe the next item is adjournment. This meeting will be adjourned to a closed session on Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025 at 5 p.m. here in the City Council chambers. We stand adjourned.